Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We are going to start the first session, and the session is on the enhancement of education for employment and enhancement of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in IDB member countries. So I'm going to, can you move a little bit, like if you are in the back, can you move a little bit closer so that we can have last row, can you move a little bit closer? Sorry. Okay. So I will call, please welcome the moderator of the session, Dr. Abdurrahman Bedi, who's the manager of the education division, to come and moderate the session. Thank you. Yeah, I think that we can, all right. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming for this session about linking graduate to the job market. We have a panelist, a distinguished panelist. Let me call them on the floor. First, Michelle Abau. Michelle Abau holds a PhD in political science from Free University Berlin. She was in charge of policy and technical vocational training and GIZ. And she joined GIZ in 2002, and he has very rich experience in vocational education and training around the world. He covered many regions, China, also Middle East and Africa region. Welcome. Our next panelist is Stefan Wilmart. Stefan Wilmart is a global entrepreneur and education expert. His work focuses on creating entrepreneurial ecosystem that supports sustainable growth and positive social impact. He has also a rich experience in vocational education, training, and issue related to the job market and entrepreneurship. Welcome, Stefan. Abdullah Turkmenistani, he's a dean of the Islamic Economic Institute of King Abdulaziz University. He is holding this position since 2011. He holds a PhD from University of Leicester, UK, and master's degree in economics from University of Colorado. Abdullah has also a very rich experience in dealing with issues related to youth employment, education, and economic empowerment of youth. We are delighted to have you on this panelist. Manal Quta, she is education expert at the World Bank, and he is covered Central and West Africa region. And her interest is 21st century skills. And he is a member of the core team of Education for Competitiveness, which has been launched by the Islamic Development Bank and the World Bank. Welcome, Manel. We have Abdullah Al-Harbi. Abdullah Al-Harbi he didn't show up. Okay. So thank you very much for accepting to be a panelist for this invitation. Let us set the scene. So, you know, the employment is, youth employment, unemployment is a real issue for the whole region at the level of the world. And economic engagement of youth also is very low. As Dr. Bandar Hajar said in his opening speech today, there is around 75 million, more than 75 million without a job. And if we add what is coming, so that's a real challenge for the whole world, but particularly in the MENA region. So why such a high level of employment? Is this a problem in the structure of the market? Is it a problem in the education, or both, or what other? It is a level of policy, strategy, etc. So let me start by go ahead, please, Bao.
Yes, thanks a lot. I think what we can observe today is a protracted crisis in unemployment. And on one hand, it's also, let's say, in this period of a turmoil or a crisis in the region. So you can say the problem is adding up and it's getting more severe. But actually, if we have a closer look on the nature of the crisis, we can see it's much more deeply rooted. It's not only because of the war in Syria and the effect and impact on the Syrian neighbors. It's actually kind of deeply rooted. And I think it goes back very much to the question of the education system and the education system, how it matches to the economic growth or the economic situation. So we do have a very high unemployment rate here in the region, and especially affected are young people. In many countries, we have an unemployment rate for the young people of more than 30%. And an even higher unemployment rate within the group of females. And also the labor force participation is very, very low. So compared to an international standard, the labor force participation is, for example, in some countries 15% or something between 15 and 20%, which is also really very low. So one reason might be that we do have a high share of young people who are striving to go to universities to follow the academic pathway. And at the same time, we have a very low quality and a very low attractiveness of the TVET system. So this has in this region not a very good reputation or not a good tradition to go to the TVET sector. So it's also, let's say, by governments and by financial budgets, it was also neglected for a too long time. So I hope very much that this will change, because from my point of view, the mismatch on the labor market cannot be changed without an improvement of the attractiveness and the quality of the TVET system. Otherwise, yes, the situation would go on. And I think in that sense, it would be also very important to make the TVET system much more practical, but also the academic education much more practical. So far, the whole education system is very much based on theories, and a lot of employers are actually complaining once they are getting the graduates from the education system. So they have to do a lot of effort in order to train them on the job. So this is again a kind of a waste of resources if the education system is failing to delivering the graduates the economy needs. And for GIZ, this is a very important topic. We are also, as you know, based in Germany. And Germany is, I think, well known for the education system, but especially for the TVET system. And I think this is really very specific, because in Germany, more than 50%, between 50 and 60% would go to the TVET system.
Michela, we'll come back. Thank you. We will come back to the German experience.
Yeah.
It is very important experience in terms of vocational training and linking to the job market and this will. But let me, before going to the practical question, what is working on, let's talk about what you have said, which is very, very important, that we have a high share of young people going to the higher education, and we have a low quality, combined to low quality, and inefficiency in the investment. And by this, so let me just go to Stefan. Stefan, so you heard what Michela said regarding all this, the cause and deeply rooted problems and issue of unemployment. Is there anything that linking economy and entrepreneurial and the absence of the entrepreneurial aspect in teaching and in the education system and policy? And is this the absence of this? Do you think that is the cause, or what?
So I agree with Michaela. I agree with Michaela about the crisis that we face with skills in this 21st century, matching up with the needs of the economy and economic growth, and the role that education plays in that. is it possible for the PPT to play on this while I speak for a minute? And there's a clicker on the, yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay. Because I'll briefly, in this 5 minutes, just refer to some programs that indicate what we're talking about in terms of specific programs to address this issue. And I agree that the German model is something that in the U.S. we're closely examining aspects of it because of what it does in terms of preparing people for a 21st century labor force. And so there's 3 programs that I'll make a reference to here, and again, they're just a background reference. The Skills 21 is an organization that was formed 15 years ago. I was the founder of this organization in the U.S., and we developed curriculum to give students, try to give students 21st century, what we call 21st century skills, which relate not necessarily to the technical skills that people need, but rather to the social, emotional skills, the critical thinking skills, the kind of skills that people need to take risk in an entrepreneurial environment, et cetera. I think this works. The second program is more current. It's starting up. This is called the Renewable Nations Institute, and it's a program in partnership with the United Nations. Let's see if I can make this work. Yeah, it's partnership with the United Nations and the Sustainable Energy for All, and it's specifically aimed at building the human resource capacity for large-scale projects in member nations, mostly low and middle middle-income countries, member nations that need large-scale infrastructure projects for sustainable, renewable energy. Yeah. Okay, oops, back one. The third program is happening in Italy this summer, and it's again aimed at trying to get students to think like designers, or young people, young professionals, students, college age, to think more like designers. And again, this is a very specific skills building process, trying to get students to, young people to acquire skills that are going to be essential in a world where multinational corporations are taking a reduced role, if you will, in terms of future economic growth, and where small, medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, are going to take a much larger role in economic growth in the future, particularly in emerging economies and in the non-Western world. And then I'll just finish this, if this works, okay? So, and this all rolls up into a new way of learning that we refer to in education. Again, I'm a professional in this area, and so we talk about personalized learning. We talk about school and life preparation, because the emotional side of the process, the learning process, is every bit as important, especially in the entrepreneurial world, as the technical side. And then one last one, and I'm finished. Oops. And then we talk about building skills and confidence in young people coming out of the formal education system. There's a reform effort underway in the U.S. school system, which higher ed, which is again to blend experience with the technical or the classroom side of learning. So that's a synopsis of what I think is a response to your question about what we're doing to better train and educate students. Yes? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very important notion: personalized learning, school and life preparation, emotional skill versus technical skills. And I think this is something that Manal will agree that the importance of this, particularly that what you are interested in the 21st century skills, so and in the positive outcome of students. All those notions are now on the top of the agenda of the education system and reforms. Could you please just share with us your thought about those things?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. And I just want to start off by putting some facts out there. So I think that my colleague Michaela said some important points here as well, that youth unemployment in the MENA region is amongst the highest in the world. So, and again, I'll speak mostly to the MENA region since that is the area that I'm working in and I think is a very interesting area to understand. When we're talking about labor force participation, when we think of women's participation, 3 out of every 4 women are outside of the labor market. Youth are queuing for jobs and waiting for these jobs. So when we're thinking of positive life outcomes, we can't just think of the role of the labor market. We have to think, well, what do our youth need in order to succeed in life? And when I talk about life, I'm talking about academic performance, I'm talking about their societal role, and I'm talking about also their economic performance. So we need to think of education not just as a trajectory and as a path to get employment, but also as a means for me as a human being and as an individual to achieve and to prosper. So when we think of how can we achieve positive life outcomes, we have to think not only of the cognitive, but also of the social and emotional needs of our youth. Traditionally, education systems have been preparing youth for the public sector, for a life that has generally been fairly simple. You get a job, you get educated, you will be most likely able to secure a public sector job. Today, that is not the world. Youth in MENA are going through the steps. They're saying, hey, I'm being educated, I'm going to school, I have my credential here, but the job is not waiting for me. And a lot of youth no longer know how to deal with that. They're facing stress, they're facing a changing society. We're talking about high youth unemployment. We're talking about a population of 15 million people who have left their homes seeking safer grounds. We're talking about societies that are changing the way they're being shaped. So how do I prepare youth with the creativity, with the critical thinking, with the empathy, and the needs that they will in order to succeed in life? And you may think, well, that's not important. They'll learn that somewhere else. Actually, we find that to be quite important. 40% of employers are saying that the lack of skills and credentials of youth are deterring their ability to grow. So we see that this is a problem. And we know now, we have enough evidence and research that shows us that socio-emotional learning can increase academic achievement by 11 percentage points. So when we think of development and positive life outcomes, we have to think of it in a holistic manner. We have to look at it from the early ages and adolescence and think of what are our needs that students have and how can we foster that for better life outcomes.
Excellent. So to complete this tour of the table, let me now give the floor to Abdullah. So Abdullah is from the University of King Abdulaziz Jeddah. And you know, this university succeeded to perform very well during the last 10 years. Anyone who was following the performance of our universities at the Islamic will see that this is an example that might be of, in general, there are many Saudi universities who performed very well during the last 10 years, and King Abdulaziz University is one of them. So just share with us the experience of the university, particularly your institute. Feel free to speak in Arabic. There is translation. يمكن تتكلم باللغة العربية بل نتشرف بأن تتكلم باللغة العربية. تفضل عبد الله.
To my speakers, يعني, allow me to speak in Arabic. These are our guests يعني. ابتداء حتى يضعوا السماعات ويحبوا انه حقيقة أنا أحب إني أشكر البنك الإسلامي للتنمية، المعهد الإسلامي للبحوث والتدريب لدعوتي للحديث في هذه الورشة المهمة. وأيضا حيث نثمن هذه الشراكة العلمية بين معهد الاقتصاد الإسلامي ومعهد إرتي في هذه الورشة تحديدا. حقيقة يعني البطالة التي تحدثت عنها قبل قليل لا شك أن هي أسبابها عديدة إذا قلنا عن أسباب البطالة، لكن حبيت فقط أن أشير إلى سبب واحد أراه مهم جدا، وهو يعني الجهات المسؤولة عن البطالة هي 3 جهات بشكل عام، وهي لا شك أنه السوق ماركت والحكومة والجامعات. أو الجهات التعليمية المؤسسات التعليمية. اللي ألاحظه لأنه التنسيق غير موجود أو إنه ليس بالمستوى المطلوب بين هذه الجهات الثلاثة فيما يتعلق بأمر البطالة. البطالة لا شك أنها هي تحدي كبير، بعض الدول قد تصل فيها إلى أزمة وبعضها قد تكون فقط عبارة عن تحدي، لكنها تحدي على الأقل، وهي قضية في غاية الأهمية والجميع مهتم بها في الحقيقة على كل المستويات. فالتنسيق بين هذه الثلاث جهات تحتاج إلى مستوى أعلى حتى تواجه هذه الإشكالية. مثلا في عالم المصرفية الإسلامية أو عموما التمويل الإسلامي عموما على مستوى العالم يقال أنه هناك حاجة إلى 1 مليون موظف جديد. فإذا نحن نتكلم عن بطالة ولا نتكلم عن حاجة يعني، فكأنه في شيء من التناقض. فيبدو أنه نوعية الخريجين، عدد الخريجين كافي، هناك عدد من الخريجين كبير جدا. السوق لو أنه بده يعين بسبب فقط أنه والله عنده شهادة وعنده خريج، فالخريج جاهز. لكن يبدو أن السوق الآن بدأ يعني يحتاج إلى نوعية ومهارات محددة في هذا الخريج، لذلك نجد هذه البطالة. طبعا أخذ هذا في الاعتبار. والنقطة الأخرى نأخذ أيضا في الاعتبار وهي قضية التعليم وأهمية أن يكون مستقل ودوره في التغيير. فجامعة الملك عبد العزيز يعني لا شك اهتمت بهذه القضية، قضية المواءمة بين سوق العمل ومخرجات التعليم. من يمكن حوالي أكثر من 10 سنوات، يمكن 15 سنة، بدأت الجامعة تهتم بتزويد كل طالب في الجامعة بغض النظر عن تخصصه في مهارات أساسية يحتاجها في الخارج، منها اللغة الإنجليزية ومنها موضوع الحاسب الآلي وثقافة الإنترنت. وبالتالي الجامعة اهتمت بهذا الأمر. الجامعة أيضا يعني اهتمت مثلا بالتعليم ما يسمى بالتعليم التنفيذي executive learning، وبالتالي وهو نوع من المواءمة بين سوق العمل أو بين السوق وبين منتجات التعليم. في معهد الاقتصاد الإسلامي مثلا نحن نقدم برنامج التمويل الإسلامي التنفيذي، وهو يعني يقدم المعرفة إذا صح التعبير لمن هم على رأس العمل، وبالتالي من هو على رأس العمل أيضا هو مهدد بالبطالة إذا لم يطور نفسه. فمن خلال هذه طبعا البرامج يتم هذا التطوير إن شاء الله تعالى. نحن حريصين أيضا في إدارة البرنامج على الجانبين الذي ذكرناه، وهو قضية الاستقلالية، أن يكون العلم والمعرفة يعني هدف بحد ذاتها، وبالتالي يدخل الفصل الطالب ويتعلم العلم كما يجب أن يتعلمه. وأيضا في الحقيقة نأخذ في الاعتبار موضوع السوق. فيجد أن السوق أن هناك كثير من الخبراء الإكسبرتس ندعوهم في أكثر من خبير يدعى في الفصل الواحد لكل الطلاب لمعالجة قضية تعالج تلك المادة أو هذا البرنامج بشكل عام. فيعني هذا باقتضاب عن دور الجامعة. شكرا لكم.
Let me go back to Michelle. So you started talking about the experience of Germany in terms of vocational training and education, and this is an experience that everybody is talking about. And you said that if this region want to succeed in reducing the employment rate, youth unemployment rate, so we have to focus on education, on vocational training and education, and quality of education at the level of the basic education. So, and you started talking about the experience of German. Please go ahead.
That's the starting point is a German experience, but we know as well that the German TVET system has a history of 500 years, and it's not possible to bring it to another country in a blueprint approach. That's not possible. But I think there are a lot of experiences which could be taken, and most important is, let's say, that the different stakeholders are very close connected. As you said, let's say the public part, the private part, but also the graduates themselves and the beneficiaries of the education system, to have them always as a triangle, and everybody has a voice in this triangle. I think this is very important to know. So it's not only a public task, it's not only a private task, but actually it's a task where certainly should consist of a very good academic part, but also the TVET part should not be neglected. And I think it's very important that you have a high permeability between these different areas of education. Because otherwise, if you cannot move, for example, from the TVET system to the academic area, so it's from the very first second, it's a dead-end road. And this is also hampering certainly the attractiveness. So it's very important if you say, let's say, TVET system is something for the most vulnerable and for the weak performers. Nobody should be amazed that the reputation of TVET is very low. So and instead of that, you should say it's a very important area of skills development. And you cannot say that it's only for the weak performers. It's actually also for the high performers. And in Germany, and I think this is an interesting, and it's a big difference to many countries all over the world, we do have more than 50% of each youth cohort is moving to the dual system. So this is really, let's say, not a minority, it's a majority actually. And this already has the big advantage that the people do not feel as a minority and as the bad performers, but actually they are just a very normal, let's say, graduate, and the reputation is high. You could become a chancellor, you could become a minister, you could become a CEO coming from the German TVET system. And this is also kind of unique, I would say. We do have a lot of professions, it's more than 300, and these professions are not only the typical blue-collar professions, not only the typical crafts professions, there are also white-collar professions also on the list, so this is also very important. And even more important is that 95% of the graduates from the system would find later on a job, either at the company where they learned in, or at another company. And what's also very interesting to know, but this is perhaps not always applicable, that already in the very first year of this apprenticeship program, the people would earn a salary. So from the very first moment, they get also some income. So they do not have to pay for the education. Instead of that, they earn an income because they are part of the productive base of a company. And very important in the system, and I think this is something we can take to other countries as well in an adapted version, that the learning process is adapted or embedded into the working process. So this is very, very practical, and I think this goes well along what you said also. This comes up also with this, let's say, emotional aspect of learning, because you are really a part of the production process, and therefore certainly the qualification is also very valid for companies. So to give you an overview, it's about 20% of the German companies are getting engaged in the TVET system, and for them it's really attractive because at the end of the 3 years apprenticeship, they can rely on people who are qualified according exactly to their demand. And so a lot of foreigners who come to Germany in order to visit the German TVET system ask, okay, why do companies get involved and why do they pay money and why do they invest for it? The simple reason is that the whole activity, the whole investment pays off because they could benefit from very tailor-made, qualified apprentices as well at the end of the day.
Excellent. One major constraint for the development of vocational training is the financing. It is costly, and also ensuring the sustainability of the system is another challenge. And you said that 20% of the company in Germany are engaged financially, or what? So are they contributing? The private sector is contributing, and how much? So, and this is one of the real challenge.
Yeah. But let's say the most expensive way of TVET is putting TVET trainees into TVET schools, because TVET school is a very expensive thing, because you need, either you have an old-fashioned one with classroom training but no equipment, then it's perhaps not so costly. But once you have it more practical and once you would like to teach the students also to the modern equipment, it's by nature a very costly thing. But if you put the whole learning process into the production process of a company, you do not have a lot of extra costs because the equipment is already there. So, and I think this is the whole secret about it. It's about reducing the costs because, as in the apprenticeship, let's say 17% of the learning takes place in the company and only 30% is taking place in TVET schools in order to come up also with some kind of theory. But let's say the bigger part of the education is in practice and does not come with a lot of extra costs. And let's say the overall amount of money in the TVET system in Germany is paid, let's say, 60% by the private side, by the private companies, but it's paying off because they have later on less costs in, let's say, finding skilled people or retaining skilled people. So for them, it's really paying off. Otherwise, they would not do it because they are not forced to do it. It's completely voluntarily. And the other part, 40%, is paid by the public sector. So it's really burden sharing.
Okay. I think this demonstrates what you have said at the beginning, that it has been a system which has been built for 500 years and cannot be built over time and cannot be also just implemented overnight in a country. It requires a strong private sector. And also it's confirmed what Abdullah said, that we have the stakeholders have to talk to each other in order to have a common understanding of how to finance, implement vocational training. So Stephen, want to talk? Please go ahead.
Well, we have been involved in a process of examining our educational system and trying to determine ways to upgrade it to meet the demands or the needs of the current economy and in particular the near future economy. Because I tend to provoke my colleagues in education with the question, are we preparing students for the last economy or are we preparing them for the coming economy? And this is a particularly important question, I think, for the non-Western world, because our systems of education are difficult to reform. Taking the template of the German education system, for example, and trying to impose it on a culture or on an economy that's emerging is probably not practical. Either the same way it wouldn't be practical to use the Western or American system of higher education or job or middle school education and use that as a template, because there is an important need to examine culture and practices locally in this global economy. If we're going to be successful in education, in training the youth of tomorrow. And as I work around the world, I see this more and more. If you took a map, a heat map, a color-coded map, and took the centers of innovation in the world, new thinking and new approaches, for example, in the financial technology area, if you took a heat map and looked for innovation, you would find places like Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, Manama. You'd find these areas on the heat map emerging and glowing brightly, along with the traditional centers like London, Silicon Valley, Toronto, Singapore. If you overlaid a map where cultural diversity, the strength of a culture, you'd find a remarkable alignment. And I think we need to take that into account when we think about education. as a model, as a way, as something that we need to rebuild or reform to match up with this explosion of innovation in the global economy. And as I said in my opening remarks, we need to think about an economy that is not as dependent on large multinational corporations as it is dependent upon the emergence of small and medium-sized enterprises. Because the new financial tools, for example, the new ways of creative thinking and developing creative thinking and social skills, that is emerging as well, and those things are going to be critically important to the sustainability of the growth of economic growth and social growth of emerging economies, emerging places on the map.
Thank you. Very challenging question to all education practitioners. Are we training students for the current economy of the past or the future? I think this is a very central question, and there is a study which came out few months or a few years ago, saying that 2/3 of the existing job today will disappear by 230. This means that this is a big question on what we are teaching our students at school or at university. And this is highlight the importance of socio-emotional skills. And I will go back to Manal. So you talk about this importance. How can this socio-emotional skill, which are now becoming very important, instead of teaching students technical, but we have to learn them, to teach them how to behave in a given situation, regardless of the nature of the situation, how it is important today in the education theory, in education science.
No, absolutely. I mean, what we're learning and what we're finding out is that these skills are all interconnected, right? So we learn from a young age how a child or a student learns is all dependent on each other. A very practical example, perseverance. If I am a student who learns from a young age skills such as self-control, perseverance, then when I am faced in a classroom setting with a math problem, and I don't know how to solve that problem, my first instinct, my first reaction is not to give up, but it's to try again. So I will persevere. I will self-control by, not going and playing that video game, but by learning the basic skills. So these are skills that are learnable. Children are not born with a set of skills that they just have throughout their life. We're finding out that social and emotional skills are malleable, and there's a certain age in the development of youth and people that they are most malleable. We all know that early childhood development has significant high returns. If we look at the trends in math and science study, TIMSS, I don't know how familiar some of the members here are, but students who have had early childhood education tend to, on average, perform better on such standardized international assessments than those that haven't. So we know that early childhood education is an important phase for developing these socio-emotional skills. We also know that adolescence is another important age for developing these skills. Now the question is, we don't want to think of socio-emotional learning as an add-on, right? We want to think of it as something that is entrenched and integrated into our education system. And the World Bank, in cooperation with Islamic Development Bank, is working on the Education for Competitiveness initiative. And amongst this initiative, we are looking at this question of how can we develop and how can we work with our ministries of education in the Middle East and North Africa to adjust the thinking, not only for ourselves as the research develops, but we need to work with our partners in the education sector, with our partners in the private sector, with everyone who's involved in the development of youth. And I think that Dr. Turkmestani said a very important point. Information asymmetry exists. Students and education sector and labor market and society, we need to talk to each other and we need to understand what are some of the barriers to accessing the labor market and what does the labor market need so that it can be fed back into the education system. This feedback loop needs to exist so that we can ensure that education is relevant. Because at the moment, unfortunately, education really is failing our youth. And we can see it, again, in assessments such as TIMSS, PISA, and PEARLS. So I would say a big starting point is with our ministries of education, to work with them, to rethink. And it doesn't mean reforming the whole system, but it means making tweaks and edits to how we think. From things like adjusting the curriculum, doesn't mean full-scale reform, but tweaks to what is being taught and how is being taught. So pedagogical practices of our teachers. When students question a teacher, that should be encouraged. It shouldn't be frowned upon. When I am an inquisitive student, that should be fostered, not put down. In a lot of our situations, unfortunately, in education sectors and classroom, we are seeing teachers who might actually try and hinder some of these curiosity and creativity that they see in students. So again, these are practical approaches to how we can really rethink and support the holistic development, cognitively, socially, and emotionally.
Thank you. Cognitive competencies, very important. Perseverance, critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, all that are notions that are very crucial and should be considered today not as on, but at the core of the curricula of the curricula. So let me just ask Stephen. So you are the co-founder of this Center for the 21st Centuries, and 21st Century Skills are talking about what has been just by Manal. So can you just tell us what is this center about, how it's work, and how can his experience be beneficial to our member countries?
So I agree with just about everything that my colleague said about the importance of integrating these social, emotional, creative thinking skills. I mean, there are two things. There's the content or the technical side of what we learn in education, and then there's the way we integrate that into our emotional and social lives, and that's a skill set, and that's a very important skill set that needs to be developed. But in founding the Center for 21st Century Skills, which, although it was only 15 years ago, seems like a lifetime, because in the world we live in, we no longer have technologies that last an entire generation, where we can perfect our skills over a long period of time. We must be constantly updating our skills, constantly relearning, and in fact, education is now a lifelong process. And I don't mean the kind of learning you do when you're out on the streets, but the formal learning, math, science, technology, that's a lifelong skill. Our students will have to adapt to doing this formally throughout their lifetime if they're going to maintain their standing economically and socially in communities. So we have to approach it that way. And the Center for 21st Century Skills was an entrepreneurial approach to educational reform, because it started outside the system and then integrated into the system as it achieved some measure of success. It started very small with a limited amount of funding as an experiment. And I want to emphasize this importance of tweaking rather than throwing out a system entirely and trying to replace it with something wholly new. That's not possible. That's not practical. That's a kind of ivory tower approach. And we don't want to do that if we're going to make rapid progress. We need to encourage experiments. We need to encourage and be open to these small sort of petri dish approach, where we can organically grow successful approaches to bringing new skills or reinforcing these skills, bringing these new methods into the teaching of our youth today. And this is an urgent initiative, an urgent matter, because we're faced with a global economy without the same kind of structures that maintain the development of the economy up to this point. We have to look forward. We have to see the changes on the horizon, and we have to address those changes through education in ways that are practical and that will give our youth the confidence and the standing to become fully integrated into the new economy.
Thank you. Shall you want to follow
Yes.
up on this?
Yes, I would like to comment because, yes, I agree. I think the task is to educate the children how to handle change, actually, and also to start with a lifelong learning process. And so far, the education system is not really ready, and it's not activating students in order to come up with all these skills. But when we have a closer look, where is the change taking place the fastest? It's actually taking place the fastest in the world of work, let's say in the economy. And the education system is always struggling to catching up and to run behind these developments. So from my point of view, the idea is very clear to say to embed the learning process in the working process, and to make sure that this connection is as strong as possible. And I agree that the German system cannot be blueprinted to whatever place in the world, but alone this approach to say embed the learning process into the working process is a very strong bridge and a very strong link between the two areas which are very important to connect them as close as possible, because otherwise I think education system is always running at least 10 or perhaps even 20 years behind the development which is already taking place in the world of work.
Excellent. Embedding the learning process in the working process, I think this is the real issue that we are. And Abdullah, أنت قلت أن هذه الجهات الثلاثة اللي هي أقطاب عملية التعليمية والتشغيل لا تتكلم لبعضها، وميشيلا قالت أنه يجب أن ندمج العملية التعلمية في الميدان أو في سلسلة العمل حتى نكون ناجحة. هل يمكن أن تتقاسم معنا تجربتكم وتجربة المعهد وتجربة الجامعة في تغيير هذه الوضعية، لأنها حقيقة من الإشكاليات المطروحة الكبرى لما هو حاصل من تباعد بين التعليم والتشغيل؟
شكرا لك، الله يبارك فيك. حقيقة يعني أهمية التنسيق بين الجهات الثلاثة التي ذكرت، السوق والحكومة والسوق والجامعات، هو لأهمية التعليم. يعني التعليم يمكن أقوى أداة للتغيير، وبالتالي لابد من التنسيق بين هذه الجهات، لأن هذه الأداة قوية جدا، بل قد تكون أقوى أداة لأي تغيير في أي مجتمع. فالتنسيق في غاية الأهمية. وأيضا سبب آخر لأهمية التنسيق أنه موضوع الزمن ذكر هنا، موضوع المستقبل واليوم أو الفيوتشر ناو. يعني السوق عادة حيوي، وعادة نظرته قصيرة الأجل، يعني عنده تغييرات سريعة. في حين أن الجامعات بطبيعتها نظرتها وطبيعتها هي طويلة الأجل. يعني على سبيل المثال لو طلب السوق فجأة في السوق حصل هناك حاجة إلى تخصص معين، الجامعة عشان تستجيب لهذه الحاجة الجديدة في السوق تحتاج على الأقل يعني 4 سنوات عشان يتخرج الطالب، ويمكن تحتاج 2 أخرى عشان يعني تأخذ التمويل اللازم وتعمل الإجراءات اللازمة لإنشاء البرامج إلى آخره. فإحنا نتكلم عن 5 سنوات 7 سنوات 6 سنوات عشان تستجيب الجامعة أو الجامعات أو النظام التعليمي للتغيير في السوق. وممكن تستجيب بعد هذه عدد السنوات يكون السوق تغير مرة أخرى ولم يعد هذا التغيير الذي حصل في حاجة إليه. وحصل هذا إذا أحد يتذكر في العالم في الدوت كوم، يعني فقاعة الدوت كوم استجابت الجامعات، لكن على ما يعني خريجين أول دفعة يخرجوا انفجرت هذه الفقاعة وأصبح هناك عطالة. بل أيضا تحملت الجامعات كثير من التكاليف، عندها أساتذة عينتهم ووظفتهم وبين قوسين طردت بهم يعني لفترة من الزمن. فموضوع الزمن لا شك أنه مهم أيضا في عملية التنسيق بين هذه الأطراف، لأنه السوق غير الجامعة. طريقة التفكير، السرعة، الفيجن، لا شك أنها مختلفة. الجامعة أيضا يعني كجامعة كمؤسسة تعليمية أفضل شيء تعمله، وفترض أن نشجعها على ذلك، هو توسيع مدارك الطالب. توسيع مدارك الطالب في المعرفة عموما، يعني ما يكون نورو مايندد، وبالإضافة إلى أنه تأهيل الطالب إلى أنه يكون عنده مهارات قابلة للتكيف، وبالتالي السوق يتغير، الطالب يستطيع أن يتكيف مع هذا التغيير ويستجيب له من خلال الجامعة. فالجامعة لابد أن تعزز للاهتمام بالجانبين، وهي تستطيع بهذين الجانبين، وهو أنه المهارات لابد أن يكون لدى الطالب مهارة للتكيف عندما يتخرج. بالتالي السوق عندما يتغير هو يستطيع أن يتجاوب مع هذا التغيير، وأيضا المدارك الواسعة لهذا الخريج. يعني موضوع التغيير حقيقة أنه أركز على قضية، لأن التعليم قوي جدا في عملية التغيير على كل المستوى الثقافي، حتى على المستوى الثقافي وهو الأعمق، المستوى لا شك الاقتصادي والاجتماعي والسياسي.
شكرا. So let me now take a comment and question from the floor. If there is any. Is there a mic? So one there. So is there a mic? Can we have a mic, please? So who wanted to take the floor? Yes. So please, second row. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Excuse me, allow me to speak by Arabic. This is my mother tongue.
Please go ahead. تفضل.
بتكلم عن دور الدولة في توجيه الطاقة البشرية الخاصة بها. ويمكن أخذ مصر كنموذج بما إني من مصر، وبتكلم عن دور الحكومة في استقطاب الشباب ناحية قطاعات المفروض إن الدولة بتهتم بيها. إذا أخذنا مثلا دور الدولة في تنمية الصناعة وأهمية إنها تدفع الشباب ناحية الاتجاه ده. على سبيل المثال كل الناس عندنا في مصر عايزة أبنائها يكونوا أطباء ومهندسين بس، مش عايزين حاجة تاني. مين اللي هيبني؟ مين اللي هيصنع؟ مين اللي هيزرع؟ مفيش حد بيبص للإطار ده. فأنا شايف إن المفروض إن الدولة هي اللي تقود فكرة توجيه الطاقة البشرية الخاصة بالشباب بتوعها أو بالأجيال القادمة ليها. النقطة الثانية الشركات. يمكن في بعض الدول بسمع إنه بيستقطبوا من المرحلة الثانوية بعض الشباب وبيتم إدماجهم في الشركات دي، وبالتالي بيطلعوا متخصصين. على سبيل المثال مهندسين متخصصين في إنتاج سيارات، في إنتاج معدات whatever. إحنا للأسف بنبص إن بعد المرحلة الجامعية بندور السوق محتاج إيه. يعني إحنا بنتعلم وبعد ما نتعلم بنكتشف إنه السوق محتاج حاجة تاني خالص.
واضح جدا.
This is my point and thank you.
اسمك الكريم؟
وليد مجاهد.
وليد. تفضل. يس تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
سأتحدث بالعربي. نعم، استمعنا الحديث جميل ومتشعب، وشعرنا من خلال المتحدثين أن هناك مشكلة، ونحن نعرف أن هناك مشكلة بطالة في العالم، لكنها متدرجة من بلد إلى آخر. البلدان المتقدمة قد تكون فيها يعني أقل، لكن نشكو منها في العالم الإسلامي لا شك يعني بشكل واضح. ومع ذلك لدينا نماذج تحدثوا عنها المتحدثين في بعض الدول تقل عن دول أخرى، وهذا منوط بمخرجات التربية. ولا شك أن التربية هي التي أو التعليم هو الذي يقود إلى التغيير، وحتى ننتظر من يقود التعليم فنكون مخطئين. علينا أن نقوي الأنظمة التعليمية في العالم ككل حتى تقود التغيير. إذا كنا ننتظر الحكومات ولا المجتمع المدني ولا القطاع الثالث أن يقود التعليم، فهنا يعني لا شك أن سيكون هناك مشكلات ومعضلات. هذا المنتدى يتحدث عن تمكين الشباب، ونحن في العالم ربما هنا كمثال في المملكة العربية السعودية نتحدث من زمن عن اقتصاد المعرفة، وهي المخرجات التي تقود الاقتصاد ولا يقودها الاقتصاد. التعليم التنافسية التي يعني سمعنا عنها اليوم ويعني تمكين الشباب هي جوهر الموضوع، وبالتالي علينا أن نؤكد على ضرورة تمكين الشباب والاتجاه إلى اقتصاد المعرفة وإصلاح الأنظمة التربوية. لأنه لو أخذنا اليابان كمثال، اليابان بلد ليس لديها يعني ثروات، ولكنها بلد على جزر مالحة، لكن التعليم قاد هذه الدولة إلى أن تكون هي قائدة الاقتصاد في العالم وقائدة المعرفة أيضا. اليابان كانوا يمكنون المعلمين ويعطون المعلم القيمة والحوافز التي تجعله هو فعلا قائد التغيير وتجعله أهم عنصر في المجتمع. نحن علينا أن نحدد المشكلة حتى نوجد الحل. المشكلة حقيقة واضحة، وعلينا أن نعزز المدرسة، نقوي أنظمتنا التربوية، نعظم وضع المعلم والتعليم حتى يحدث التغيير.
وضحت الفكرة. شكرا. الاسم الكريم ذكرني به.
أنا اسمي سليمان الزايدي. أنا كنت
سلمان. شكرا. Anyone else? So let's just take a few questions and then I will come back to the panelists. Yes, تفضل دكتور سليمان. Oh, ما شاء الله.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Faisal Tahir Khan. I'm an entrepreneur and an author of Developing Entrepreneurial Culture in Islamic World. My question is, number one, as per ILO, the global unemployment rate is around 6 to 7%. Recently, a study made by IDB and OIC, the Islamic world unemployment rate is 15 to 16%, which is double to the global unemployment rate, which is an alarming situation. And all the global issues you can very well analyze, which comes from unemployment, which is an alarming rate. My question is, how we can, I'm sure as you can see, the whole region is facing a lot of issues because of the oil prices is down, and which is leading all the governments to replan and re-strategize their things, and the economy is shrinking, whether we accept it or not. So the idea is how there can be a connection with the university and the industry, because what we see, there's a huge disconnect. What we is educated in the university and the boy or girl is coming out, the industry does not need him, first of all. They don't want to spend the money on training, they just want someone to come out and be good for them, as they say, hit the ground running. So how can, like we happen in Imperial College in London or in America in MIT, where different human resource directors come on sits on the university's board and they develop the syllabus for them, so that when someone graduate, they're good for the industry and they can absorb them right away. So can you please suggest something for the region, that how they can re-strategize their syllabus, and the Ministry of Education can work with the universities, can work with the high school, can they develop the hard skills and soft skill in a way when someone graduates, comes out, he's good for the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last question, and then we go back to the panelists. تفضل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. تفضل عبد الكريم محمد، معهد الاقتصاد الإسلامي. أولا نشكر للإخوة في البنك الإسلامي هذه البادرة، وحقيقة طرح هذا الموضوع من حيث هو فكرة رائعة جدا، لكن حقيقة نحتاج إلى آليات. يعني الكل متفق أن هناك فجوة كبيرة جدا بين ما تخرجه الجامعات والمعاهد العليا وبين حاجة سوق العمل أو القطاع الحكومي، ولذلك لا بد من ردم هذه الفجوة. وأنا أتصور هناك عدم تنسيق كبير جدا بين وزارات التعليم والجامعات وبين مؤسسات القطاع الخاص والقطاع الحكومي أيضا يعني. ولذلك أنا أتصور لكي نخرج من هذه الإشكالية ينبغي أن يكون هناك تصور من البنك الإسلامي للتنمية والجهات المعنية لعمل دراسات ميدانية لتلمس هذه المشكلة، بمعنى لا بد من التنسيق بين وزارات التعليم العالي ممثلة في كثير من الجامعات وبين القطاعات الحكومية والمؤسسات الخاصة في سوق العمل. الجامعات ليست مهمتها أن تلبي حاجة العمل بشكل أو بآخر، ولكن مهمة الجامعة هي أن تملك المعرفة للطلاب، وسوق العمل له أيضا توجهات أخرى ربما تختلف عن توجه الجامعات، ولذلك لا بد من إيجاد آلية تنسيقية تعمل لردم هذه الفجوة. وأتصور يمكن أن نخرج من هذه الورشة بتوصية نحتاج إلى تنسيق بين الجامعات والمعاهد العليا.
وضحت الفكرة عبد الكريم. شكرا عبد الكريم. Last one. Okay, please. Yes.
My name is Qasim Jan. I'm from Comstech, Islamabad. There were very nice suggestions, very nice discussion, but I think one of the issue we have not discussed today is that I think that the expansion in jobs, in new jobs, is probably not keeping pace with the growth in population and our participation, increasing participation in higher education. I think that the expansion of the industrial and production sector in many countries, many developing countries, particularly in the Islamic countries, is slow. Our population is very rapidly increasing, and with automation coming more and more into the industry, this would jeopardize the opportunities of more jobs for the people. Thank you.
This is very important because he looks at the problem from other side. Okay, let us go back now to the panelists who want to. We have a question. The first one regarding the role of the government in orienting and indicating and monitoring the industry and the employment and the education in order to have the right field of education. Second is the knowledge economy and how to prepare the education system to this knowledge economy and establish an employment strategy. And we have a question regarding the linking university and industries and necessity of diagnosis studies and some practical recommendation. And finally, this is a problem of that industry and economic growth is not keeping pace with the growth in education and demography. So who want to take first? Stefan, you want to take one? Okay, go ahead.
Just, I'm interested in answering the questions because I heard a common thread in the 5 questions, a very common thread, and that is that we have an economy that needs to absorb more and more new workers, and we've talked here on the panel about ways to do that, approaches to do that. But I would say again that if we look at the emerging economy, and if we go back and and I'm part of a study group at MIT, which is famous for its engineering and its bioengineering, so you could say doctors, et cetera. It's technical education. I'm part of a working group at Harvard University and Yale University. So those 3 universities are self-examining their approach and what makes them great universities. And in every case, there's a huge amount of diversity. There's an extraordinary amount of diversity, cultural diversity, at those universities that often distinguishes it from other second-tier universities in the U.S. I spent 10 years in Asia examining Japanese education and Chinese education, other Asian education systems. And these systems, again, take into account, Japan is a classic example. Yes, Japan opened up its teaching process to adapt to what my colleagues have said about the importance of creative thinking and early childhood education and opening up the minds at a very young age and encouraging that kind of thing. But they did it within their cultural context. Japan is a Confucian culture, and there's a respect for authority, there's a respect for experienced elders, if you will. But they were able to make that transition to an economy based on the physical geography of Japan has nothing, no resources to mine and to create economic growth with. They did it through a creative economy. And China faces the same challenge today, to move from an industrial model to a knowledge model. And they understand in China the huge significance of this transition, because they can no longer sustain the industrial model that gave them 10% or plus 7% growth over the last 30 years. They cannot sustain that. So they're moving as quickly as they can to a creative economy, but that's a big challenge because that requires a different set of skills. You can't do it, I don't believe, necessarily 100% on a national planning level. You have to open the system to creative experiments. And so to my friend, the entrepreneur that asked the question, I would respond that, yes, we need more of an entrepreneurial approach, particularly in the education space, to allow for experiments, to allow, again, this opportunity for us to think of education as a small, medium-sized enterprise and not necessarily an entirely a large-scale enterprise that needs to be exported around the world. It is very local, it's culturally based, it has to be integrated with culture and local norms, along with, again, some principles of ideas about opening up to new experiments.
Thank you. Yes, Michelle?
Yes, if I could add on this, also from my point of view, very often the education system, as we do have it in most of the countries, actually in all the countries, are very often very rigid. So the process is described, the content is described. From my point of view, in order to open it up and to give more room to flexibility, I think it's better to shift from the clear process description and content description of curricula to a higher level of assessment. Because if you have a good assessment at the end of whatever level, different ways could lead to Rome. So let's say different schools, different approaches, different teachers could come up, let's say, with more flexible teaching styles, but then certainly the assessment is really very crucial. And so far it's very much relying on process and content, and I think this should be changed. There is one issue which is in a way also sometimes a challenge, because in some areas, in many countries, education is also in the meantime a business. It's a very commercial area. And this leads sometimes to wrong incentives to very much, let's say, offer formal certificates, and the quality is not always behind it. So I'm a little bit questioning how good it is to put too much of the education system in private hands. So I think it should be always a very strong voice also of the public sector. But at the end of the day, it's very crucial to have a very good coordination between the private sector and the public sector, on the national level, on the subnational level, on the local level, also sector-wise, let's say, depending in which sector and which industry a country is strong in. So also to coordinate in that sense and to really make sure that the two areas are very well connected. from the perspective of the youth, I would say it's important to come up with more career guidance, because actually a lot of young people are following the stream, what the teacher is telling them, what the parents are telling them, what perhaps the peer group is telling them, and it's not so much what is really in their personal interest. So they should be supported in making up their mind about their dreams, about their hopes, and about their plans for their future. And I think then they would also to take their strengths and their, let's say, wishes as a starting point, they would be better prepared for a changing economy, because I think the times are over that you are learning something in a young age, and until retirement age you stick to one job. I think this is over, and that's why we have to prepare people for a constant change. And career guidance is a very important tool in that.
Excellent. Yes, Manal, you wanted to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, so something very practical that a lot of countries are doing to help bridge the gap between education and the labor market is education tracking systems. So countries like Chile and Italy, for example, have very good education tracking systems. And what that is essentially, it is an information management system where students, before they apply to universities, can log on and say, okay, what does the labor market require? What does this university and these universities in with X country, what majors do they offer? What is the average annual income of someone who graduates with this major in the labor market? What is the average waiting period for someone who graduates from this major in order for them to get a job? And it gives you an idea of how many students have done this, what the labor market demands are. So in order to have such a functioning system, of course, we will require good cooperation and coordination between the private sector and education institutions, higher education and basic education. So this is something very practical, and Palestine actually now is implementing this type of education tracking system. And again, many countries can also adapt and adopt this approach in order to bridge some of the gaps that currently exist. I was going to say, I think that, by 2020, we're going to have 100 million youth who are entering the labor market in the MENA region alone. But the problem also that we're seeing is that we don't have sufficient private sector jobs. I made this point earlier, and I'll make it again. Our education system is preparing youth to enter public sector employment, which is no longer becoming a viable option. And so one of the biggest challenges, and I think that we're focusing rightly so a lot on the education sector, but there are also structural issues within the labor market that need to be addressed so that they too can absorb the youth. So we're talking right now about the supply, but we also have to create an enabling environment in the labor market so that they have the demand for nationals and for young youth who are entering the labor market. So it's also up to the responsibility of the labor market, whether it's just private entities or also the government as they take their role in regulating the labor market, to signal. And a lot of times what we're seeing, especially in the MENA region, is that signaling is distorted and that there's information asymmetry. So I would say it's definitely a balancing act between what's happening in education and how we can respond. And I think one of our members of the audience said, well, it's the job of universities just to educate. But I ask, educate to what purpose? Of course, we want to learn and we want to have information because it's of our own human curiosity to learn and be knowledgeable. But in terms of our own human development, we are educated so that we can enter and we can work and we can produce and we can support an economy and a society that will not only benefit us but benefit all.
Thank you. Abdullah, يمكن كلمة أخيرة.
نعم، أحب أني حقيقة أشير إلى 3 تجارب ناجحة وجميلة. التجربة الأولى من حقيقة من كلية اقتصاد وإدارة، وهي طبعا تابعة لجامعة حكومية، وبالتالي أنا قد نتكلم عن موضوع الدور الحكومي. كلية اقتصاد وإدارة مرت بتجارب زي يمكن بقية الكليات، بترسل طلابها للتدريب مدة 2 3 شهور 4 شهور، لكن حقيقة كانت التجربة الأخيرة كانت ناجحة جدا. والسبب النجاح في رأيي أنه كان هناك يعني لقاءات تفصيلية معمقة بين الشركات وبين المسؤولين في الكلية. نوعية الطلاب الذين يحتاجونهم عشان التدريب، نتكلم عن التدريب فقط، يعني اللي هو الأربع شهور هذه الفرصة الدراسي الواحد، وشروط الكلية وشروط الشركة، وأقنعت عدد كبير من الشركات إلى استقبال الطلاب للتدريب ومتابعة الطلاب أثناء وبعد التدريب. حقيقة كانت النتائج يعني مذهلة جدا وجميلة جدا. الشركات أعجبت بكثير من الطلاب، بل حتى بعضهم وظفوهم مباشرة قبل التخرج يعني. فهذا التواصل المباشر والتفصيلي بين الجامعة وبين الشركات ما يحتاج فقط أن ترسل خطاب وتقول والله عندنا طلاب نحتاج ندربهم وهذا من واجباتك، لا، تحتاج إلى أنه يعني تقوم بالدور. وطبعا الدور هذا ليس فقط للجامعة بل أيضا للشركات، فالشركات أيضا تشكر إلى أنها يعني دخلت في هذا النقاش. هاي تجربة حقيقة نفتخر بها في جامعة الملك عبد العزيز كلية الاقتصاد والإدارة، وتكلم احنا عن شركات كبيرة وعالمية في جدة. التجربة الثانية حقيقة هذه من القطاع الخاص. الطالب عندما يتخرج أمامه ليس فقط طريق واحد وهو أن يتوظف، إنما أيضا أنه هو يبدع، أنه هو يعني يؤسس وظيفة، هو يؤسس عمل خاص. فريادة الأعمال، أذكر تجربة للمهندس رياض الزامل في الدمام، اسمها شركة راز. هذه شركة قدمت تجربة رائعة جدا في دعم رواد الأعمال الجدد من خلال تمويلات يعني رائعة جدا، وهي الجمع بين القطاع الخيري والقطاع البزنس وقطاع الأعمال. راز عملت مؤسسة وقفية سمتها رواحل لدعم رواد الأعمال وتدعمهم ب100% من الميزانية التي يحتاجونها لإنشاء هذه الشركة لشركتهم الناشئة. 40% قرض حسن، و40% مشاركة، و20% هدية طبعا بس بشروط معينة. تجربة رائعة جميلة يعني نحتاج أن نستمع إليها، وأظن هناك كثير من التجارب. الشركة هذه يعني أسست إلى الآن 50 شركة كلها لشباب صغار وشابات، ما يحتاجوا إلى التوظيف لأنه يروح توظفوا سواء في الشركة أو في حكومة. أنشأوا يعني شركاتهم الخاصة وأبدعوا في ذلك، ومنهم ناس يعني قاموا بمشاريع ضخمة. التجربة الثالثة حقيقة دولية، وهي المركز التابع لجامعة الملك عبد العزيز. أنشأت الجامعة مركز الاقتصاد الإسلامي في إسبانيا في جامعة الIE. جامعة الIE هي جامعة يعني تعتبر تصنف ضمن العشر الأوائل في العالم في البزنس في إدارة الأعمال. هناك أنشأنا مسابقة دولية على مستوى العالم، ليست على مستوى طبعا السعودية ولا العالم العربي والإسلامي، إنما مستوى العالم كله، لدعم برضو رواد الأعمال. المسابقة بشكل مبسط نريد من الشباب أن يقدموا فكرة طبقت على الأرض، أفادت المجتمع ولم تستخدم التمويل التقليدي. هذه شروط بكل بساطة. خلال ال5 سنوات الماضية كان عندنا مميزين من أندونيسيا في مجال الزراعة، مميزين من السعودية في مجال المنصات التسويق، مميزين من مصر أيضا في مجال الكراود فاندينج، في مجال 3D printing. إبداعات حقيقة جميلة. والسنة هذه إن شاء الله بالتعاون مع الIDB نفس المسابقة سوف تتسع بشكل أكبر وتعم خاصة 57 دولة الإسلامية، وحيكون فيها إن شاء الله إبداع أيضا جديد. لذلك التعليم يعني أو الوظائف ليس فقط أو العمل ليس في الوظيفة فقط، ولكن أيضا في أن الشاب بنفسه يقوم بإنشاء يعني شركته الخاصة وعمله الخاص. فالجامعة أيضا هي مفترض أن تستطيع أن توجد يعني وتبني هؤلاء رواد الأعمال هؤلاء من خلال برامج تعليمهم. شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا. With this positive note, this practical example, that success story, so we end our session. Let me just thank all of you for being with us during this session, and thank our distinguished panelists for their excellent thoughts and enlightened reflection on this very important subject. Thank you very much. I think there is some announcement. So let us give hand to our panelists.
Thank you very much. This session has been really interesting because it has allowed us to kind of put in perspective the already high unemployment rate that we are talking about in the region. We see it more in perspective by combining it with a low participation rate. So which was really an interesting session. in terms of development already, we've talked about, the effect of the peculiar role of education on health in terms of economic development, because we know that, education will allow us to have, to increase the efficiency of health programs, but, health program also allow to increase the, the returns on education. So in this session, we have seen another way of how, we can find other ways to make education more efficient through, vocational programs, through, development of early childhood education, etc. So we'll just move to the next session. So we thank you very much for this, interesting session. So we won't have a break. So we'll just move to the next session, which is also a continuation of this discussion with case studies. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much. Okay, so, so we'll move to the next, two sessions. The first one is, both of them are on, practical case studies, what works. So I would like to call Dr. Brother Hussein Eddin to be the moderator for this session. Thank you. Thank you. So the floor is yours. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. I kindly request Sister Amal Dukhan, Brother Abdullah Harbi, Dr. Jamal Al-Aqad, and Brother Ozan Sunmaz to join us on the panel, please. Brother Abdullah Harbi. So inshallah, Brother Abdullah will join us. So thank you for the first session and for opening the topic, which is economic education for competitiveness. And the second session, we will tackle the one layer of education for competitiveness, which is education for transformation. And we will focus on education and entrepreneurship. And I'm glad to have here, I'm really glad to have them, Sister Amal Dukhan, which is, she is the Learning and Design Program Manager at KAUST, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. She has combined 17 years of working experience in corporate education, startup training, strategic thinking, strategic marketing, service designs, coaching and training. She built marketing strategies to several entities, such as Dubai Shopping Festival, Kempinski Hotel, and she is part for a 2-year program in MIT Sloan School of Management as part of the Saudis team in Regional Accelerator Program. We have Dr. Jamal Al-Aqad, which is the head of the change management team within the Business Intelligence Solutions Department in Saudi Aramco. We have brothers Ozan Sunmaz, who is an experienced entrepreneur, international keynote speaker and advisor, high growth tech startup mentor. He is now in Silicon Valley. He has been recognized as international leader in entrepreneurship by the US State Department. And we are still waiting for Brother Abdullah Harbi, who is the King Abdullah Economic City Corporate Marketing Director. He was the general manager of Wa'ad Academy, where he helped launch the largest school in the Middle East and first fully tablet-based school within the kingdom. So let's start our session, and it will be around 50 minutes, and it's subdivided in three subsections. The first one will be the ecosystem. Let me start with Dr. Jamal. Dr. Jamal, can you please define what is entrepreneurship and what is the role of entrepreneurship in the youth economic empowerment?
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
صوتي مسموع؟ في عندنا مشكلة نحن في كلمة الانتربرنورشيب. طبعا مع التقنية الجديدة متعلمين حاجتين: copy and paste and cut and paste. كلمة انتربرنورشيب ترى على فكرة لها مفهوم مغاير تماما في اللغة العربية. للأسف الشديد نحن ربطناها بالأعمال التجارية. الريادة فكر، ممكن تكون موظف بفكر ريادي، ممكن تكون طالب بفكر ريادي، ممكن تكون سيدة أعمال بفكر ريادي، أو ربة منزل مربية بفكر ريادي. فالريادة انتربرنورشيب مرتبطة بالفكر وليست مرتبطة بالأعمال. ولما نيجي نتكلم عن ريادة الأعمال برضو المفهوم قاصر جدا في اللغة الإنجليزية. اللغة الإنجليزية لغة قاصرة، ما عندهم غير كلمة انتربرنور اللي هي طبعا عارفين انه ماخذينها من اللغة الإنجليزية من اللغة الفرنسية، ومعناها الأصلي مقاول. بينما في اللغة العربية لو رجعنا للغة العربية حنلاقي في عندنا عصامي، وعندنا مبادر، وعندنا ريادي، وعندنا طليعي، وكل نوع التريتس السمات حقتها مختلفة تماما. للأسف الشديد نحن أخذنا كلمة انتربرنورشيب ريادي وعملنا one shirt fits all. لذلك للأسف بصرف النظر عن كل الموارد والمجهود اللي بنحطه فيما يسمى بالإيكو سيستم المنظومة، كمان في مشكلة ثانية بنفشل، والسبب أنه صممنا ما يسمى one shirt fits all، بينما العصامي غير الريادي غير الطليعي غير المبادر. هذه نقطة. النقطة الثانية لما نيجي نتكلم على الإيكو سيستم، الإيكو سيستم أو المنظومة أو البيئة تتطور طبيعيا، وشيء طبيعي أنها تبدأ بفوضى. لو في منظومة بتتطور بطريقة روعة، تعرف أنه في مشكلة، لأنه لازم العبثية والعشوائية في البداية لازم تكون هذه الطبيعية. للأسف الشديد نحن بنحاول نهندس المنظومة. المنظومة لا تهندس، المنظومة تتطور طبيعيا. فكمان هذه المشكلة الثانية. بالنسبة للسؤال الثاني العالم بيتغير، وبيتغير بتسارع غير طبيعي. للأسف الشديد أنا ملاحظ أنه بنتكلم الآن عن الاقتصاد المعرفي. ترى العالم عدى الاقتصاد المعرفي. تعتقدوا العالم دحين فين؟ في الاقتصاد اللي يسموه الاقتصاد الرقمي، ديجيتال ايكونومي، عداه. اليوم العالم الأول بيتكلم على حاجة اسمها، خلاص دخلوا فيه، اسمه تيليبورتينج ايكونومي. تيليبورتينج ايكونومي زي أفلام الكرتون حقت أيام زمان، أو أفلام الفضاء اللي إذا كنتوا تفتكروا كده يوقفوا كده وفجأة كده يتبخروا عشان يبانوا في مكان تاني. صدقوا أو لا تصدقوا، ترى في تجارب بدأت تثبت إنه الموضوع ده حقيقي. يعني في تراثنا العربي نسمع عن قصص أصحاب الكرامات. الظاهر إنه العالم حيتحول إلى عالم الكرامات. فنحن قاعدين في حكاية الاقتصاد المعرفي، والعالم ما عدى الاقتصاد المعرفي ولا حتى عدى الاقتصاد الرقمي، دخل في حاجة اسمها الاقتصاد الكراماتي، التليبورتينج. يا جماعة الخير خلونا نصحى شوي. بالنسبة لليوث امباورمنت it's a matter of mindset. لازم نغير من طريقة تفكيرنا. أكثر من كده ما أقدر أقول.
Thank you, Dr. Jamal. Here I come to Brother Ozan. The new elected French president, Emmanuel Macron, said that he's planning to make France in 5 years a startup nation. And that reminds me what Dave McClure, the 500 startups, said, that Silicon Valley, it's not a place, it's a state of mind. So how can we build a successful model based on Silicon Valley model in our IDB member countries?
That's a problem I'm struggling myself. So I started leading an organization called Growth Circuit. It's part of a It's funded by a university in Turkey and multiple public-private partnerships, and I'm based in Silicon Valley, San Francisco. What I have realized recently is in the last 10 years, people have understood that they need to do more in the developing economies, and they looked at the model for Silicon Valley. Unfortunately, even countries that are developed compared to the emerging economies, even cities that are 1 or 2 hours flight distance from San Francisco have not been able to manage to replicate what was done in Silicon Valley because they have not understood what happened in that area that it enabled this blossoming startup environment, this culture. It's all about culture, and Dave and other thought leaders are very right in this. It doesn't start from something tangible. It starts from something that is intangible. That's intentions and culture and perspectives. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to replicate, and most of the examples in countries like Turkey and others, and even countries in Europe, French and Spain, they try to replicate the tangible things. Oh, we need to create incubation centers. We need to create entrepreneurship programs in universities. We need to create micro VCs. We need to create accelerators, which is the last 10 years hot and sexy words. Those creations are okay, and you can model it, you can learn from the best experiences, but you cannot easily replicate what happens in those areas, what happens in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, and look at it as a blueprint. I think every country has to build their own blueprint, but it starts with a very fundamental need to understand that it starts with the understanding of failure as a culture, failure being accepted as a failure, being accepted as a pioneer that comes with the risks. I think Dr. Jamal was mentioning that the word did not translate well to Arabic. I think the word did not translate well to anything in any country because the propensity to accept failure and the propensity to collapse and manage the innovator's journey in other countries have not been replicated, especially in the region, in the Islamic Development Bank's member countries, and in Europe, in Africa, in Far East. There is still a strong density of old businesses, not small businesses, but large corporate entrepreneurs who have been in the business for the last 50, 60, 100 years, that are not changing as fast as the rest of the countries, the rest of the world. And the change was something at a slower pace 20 years ago, but right after I think the mobile revolution, let's say it started with iPhone 10 years ago, the speed of change has increased tremendously, and people have not really caught up with that in emerging economies. We have been giving a blank page 10 years ago. Everything mobile started, and everybody was at exactly the same level. No one in the US knew how to develop a mobile app, and no one in other countries knew how to develop a mobile app. So everybody was at the same stage. But now we see what happened in 10 years. Small changes, small percentage of degrees of separation has led to incremental changes in some countries, and really slow adoption rates in other countries are now stagnating. I think building a culture like Silicon Valley is possible, though it needs a lot of intervention, it needs a lot of thought, and it needs role models, especially in emerging economies. Without role models who are able to succeed, it is very difficult to change the public mindset. It is very difficult to change the education system. It is very difficult to change, I think we were discussing in the previous panel, what's the role of education in this. And it will be a really different world 10 years from now. And people are not, I think, following up, thinking through enough, and are able to give up the old traditions enough as fast as they should be. 10 years from now, we will not be talking about universities. I don't think there will be an institution called an undergraduate degree granting institution. That is done. Now, 10 years from now, I think we'll be talking about nothing but online education, nothing but virtual reality-based education. We're not going to be talking about what we are talking now. And it's not going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. It's going to take maybe a generation. And everything will change. And I don't think we are leading the change. We're kind of following it through. And there should be a time where we should not be following anymore. We should be leading. And that can only happen with pioneers enabled by a general consensus, pioneers enabled by different institutions. Universities should lead, but definitely not as degree-granting institutions, but as thought leaders, visionaries, researchers, but not anymore as diploma-granting institutions, because that time is done.
Thank you, Ozan. We come to the education part later. Before coming to the King Abdullah Economic City, I would like to hear from Dr. Jamal and Sister Amal. How do you evaluate the experience in, or what is the suitable ecosystem and best practices to have in our member countries? How do you evaluate the current ones and how to go further? As said by Ozan, definitely we need to go by failures. So maybe there are some failures. How can we evaluate this? And what is the suitable ecosystem to have a successful entrepreneurship ecosystem?
Sure. So it's really good to look at what has worked and the best practices, I think, around the world. But again, as mentioned by both Dr. Jamal and Ozan, I mean, we're very unique here in the Islamic world. And I think our culture and our preparation is completely different than what exists in Silicon Valley. So yes, it has to evolve. The ecosystem has to evolve naturally, but I believe in boosters. And I believe in things that will help think accelerate and give people the hope that this is possible. So creating these successful stories, we'll need these, accelerators, we'll need the competitions, we'll need the education. One of the experiences that I was part of, and I'm still involved since the past 3 years, is MIT Enterprise Forum, for example. It's a competition that's been going for the past 10 years. It started really small. Success wasn't really high. But today, after 10 years, the number of applications that comes, the amount of ideas that are innovative, the amount of ideas that are based in technology and research and coming up with ideas that fills gaps that we didn't think that will be filled by our Arab or Islamic entrepreneurs. So we see a lot of hope today in everything that we see in that competition. And I think if we compare the data with what happened before and what's happening today, we should encourage that. Failure is a must. And it's by nature, by default. That's how we all grew. We should accept it and show them that failure is part of the process. We always say, treat failure as a scientist treats his experiment. Every failure is a learning. Every failure is something that we're learning and we're knowing more and we know how to deal with it. And that's the role of competitions. That's the role of the accelerator programs that gives the education, the ecosystem, the financing, and all of that. So it doesn't matter, honestly, I think, what practice we're following, as long as it could achieve the mindset change, which is the culture that we're actually achieving or we're hoping to see. And we see it today in youth. I've trained in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Dubai, in Jordan, and in Saudi Arabia. Who would have actually thought that today we see thousands and thousands of Saudi entrepreneurs whom they are not running for the job market, and they say, I want to actually allocate some time and start a company. So that trend is what needs to be encouraged. We're not saying drop the job. We're not saying this. We're saying give yourself the time to experiment. So this is part of the experience, and I think we're learning, and it's evolving until we find different models that works for us. All what we do in these accelerators is basically to teach them tools, processes, methodologies of how to make it faster, and then evolve and witness, and then we will learn from there. So I see that the ecosystem is being created. It is being actually happening. We're seeing it over there, and we're seeing a positive trend, I believe. So we just need to keep boosting and encouraging. So that's basically what I see in that part.
Okay, so you see positive trends. The positive trend changing in the IDB member countries and the specialized notes from the MENA region specifically.
The MENA region, I think, is specific, and I think maybe the experiment can be duplicated, in other countries. So 2 years back, we were in Mozambique. we were training, university students as part of the annual conference. And all what they said, those young university students, they said, we always think of problems and we want to solve them. We don't know how to do that. Now we have the tools. And we can actually seek for the money and the right. We have crowdfunding now. We can try with small experiment that doesn't cost us much, prove the point, and go and seek more funding after that. So seeing all of that, and governments today are actually creating those research parks, right, to cultivate, and show that there is an ecosystem in certain place. So I think the trend is there. What the Islamic Bank can do more is to encourage, these successful trends that actually happened in the MENA region, let's say, and, duplicate it and see what works, because every country is unique and every continent is also unique. So what works here may not work in Africa, may not work in the States, and so on and so forth. So I think that's basically the model, is like, see what are the best practices, but go and experiment and learn. We say human-centered design. It's based on people, where they exist, how are their trends, and then design for them. So you can make it natural. And I think that's what can be done, for the time being.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Shamal, do you have something to add about evaluation of the current ecosystem?
والله أنا أعتقد إنه يعني من خلال تجربة نحن just unleash. خلينا نكون أمس سمعت كلمة، كنت مع مسؤول، كنت بسأله يعني أدفع شوي، قال لي أنا أتعامل مع المال اللي معايا كأنه مال اليتيم، لا يمكن إني. طيب إذا كانت هذه عقليته، طبعا جزاه الله خير، يعني هو معتبر نفسه إنه إنسان مستأمن على المال، لكن إذا كانت هي هذه العقلية إنه بيتعامل مع المال إنه مال يتيم، ترى لا يمكن أن نتطور. نحن عندنا مشكلتنا زي الأخت أمل قالت، في عندنا مشكلة خوف الفيلير، فهي مايند سيت، ومسألة ثقافة. نحن عندنا الفشل نهاية العالم، وبالفعل أنا كنت ريادي قبل ما زلت، بس سكيت عشان أرامكم ما يعرفوا يعني. أسست 5 شركات، كسبت في 2، وجات 3 جابت أجلي، خسرت كل حاجة، وقعدت 14 سنة أدفع ديون. تقريبا الابواب اتقفلت في وجهي، حتى ام محمد زوجتي الاولانيه اخذت الاولاد ومشيت. فالفيلير عندنا ترى مأساة، يعني حتى في العيله انه ترى لا تقعدوا مع جمال حيوديكم في داهيه. فعندنا طبعا الحمد لله رب العالمين، الوحيده بعد الله اللي وقفت معي كانت امي، والحمد لله اليوم يعني الحمد لله موضوع ثاني. فعندنا الخوف والرعب من عدم لا تجرب، لا تعمل، لا تسوي. نحن أسسنا مركز أرامكو لريادة الأعمال، وكانت قائمة على يعني كثير قالوا لنا أنتم مجانين وبتهبلوا. نحن الجهة الوحيدة اللي كنا بنعطي قروض بدون أي رهونات، نون كولاترال فند، ونحن الوحيدين اللي عندنا سيد فند بدون مقابل أي شيء. نمسك كده 100,000، تعال يا ولد ألعب، ونروح نقول لهم ترى على فكرة خسرها. كان عندنا 14 فريق، 5 فرق نزلوا السوق وهم لسه طلبة جامعات، وصاروا بيوظفوا زملائهم الخريجين. منهم واحدة من الشركات هذه اللي نزلت وهم لسه طلبة، وظفوا 2 من خريجين جامعة البترول. أعطينا الفرصة لأنفسنا إنه نفشل، وطلعنا قلنا لرؤسائنا ترى على فكرة جربنا وخسرنا، جربنا وفشلنا، بس إيش الدروس المستفادة؟ إذا ما عندنا الجرأة ما حنتحرك.
شكرا دكتور جمال. Thank you. That remind me really the few books that one of my former professor wrote, which is the other F word, which is John Danner and Max Coppersmith. You cannot succeed with having this failure, and they highlighted a lot of startups that failed in the beginning before succeeding after. No, let's be more positive, and I will go to King Abdullah Economic City, because I think we have the role model in Kayak, and Brother Abdullah can tell us what was done in terms of youth economic empowerment and the entrepreneurship ecosystem in King Abdullah Economic City. تفضل.
First of all, I want to actually touch upon what Dr. Jamal just highlighted, which he highlighted actually a very clear word, saying unleashing. And I think unleashing is the key word that we're trying to achieve here when it comes to youth empowerment. In King Abdullah Economical City, we have Babson College, which is part of Prince Mohammed bin Salman's college. They produce a report, an annual report called the GEM report. Within it, they actually analyze the full markets globally, and they see the entrepreneurship systems, ecosystems that are available all over the world, and how are they going to support the economical empowerment for generations to come. Saudi ranks the 25th in the global GEM report. Nevertheless, if we look at one measure, which is enthusiasm, when it comes to entrepreneurship, we will find that we're ranked number 1, surprisingly, which means that the people of Saudi Arabia truly believe in entrepreneurship as a career, as a focus area for themselves. Within that number, within that report, the number shows that 66% of the population of Saudi, which are working age population, think that entrepreneurship is the name of the game for them. They want to start their own businesses. They don't want to come to traditional businesses, either be it in the government or the private sector, but they truly want to start their own, jumpstart their own businesses. 26% actually said that they will start within the coming 5 years. So why are we ranked in the 25th in the global scale? Simply because the ecosystem is still not supporting those people who wants to start. So coming back to the word unleashing, it's truly the key word for building the economy under the entrepreneurship system that will allow people to thrive. Now, coming to King Abdullah Economical City, and what do we have when it comes to supporting entrepreneurship? We have an ecosystem. And the ecosystem starts literally from PGCell, which is Babson Global Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership. And that also almost have a $70 million fund that is going to be focusing mainly on the new startups that are going to be in the city. Plus, we have as part of Red Sea Foundation, the Bridge program, which allows different SMEs and different medium businesses as well, startups as well, that are within the Red Sea countries to jumpstart their businesses inside Saudi Arabia. So it's almost a branching approach for them to start their businesses in Saudi. We're actually going to incubate 20 different companies from Jordan this year, and we're looking forward for growing that partnership to focus on other key cities and regions inside the Red Sea area. We have at least, I think, in one of the key enablers when it comes to entrepreneurship is the Economical City Authority. So ECA, the Economical City Authority, is the one-stop shop for anybody to start his own business. Just imagine here in the basic economy, if I want to start a business here in Jeddah, how many governmental offices am I going to need to pass by? The good side of the story in the Economical City of Cake is that you only have one-stop shop, which is ECA, where you start your licensing, you start your building up all the different other documentations that you would need, and hence start your business in a startup mode faster than anywhere else. So those are the elements within the ecosystem of the entrepreneurship that we're trying to adopt within the Economical City that will allow, hopefully, multiple startups and SMEs to start working inside the city. Aside from that, we adopted entrepreneurship as a key element within the system of the city as a whole. Number one, we host a lot of forums, so we got to meet a lot of my colleagues here and the panelists, in either be it the MITF forum, the Endeavor forum. All of those are focusing mainly on entrepreneurship as a thought leadership and how can we build a system that will allow them to thrive in the economy. And hosting the #1 college for entrepreneurship, which is Babson College, which is ranked #1 in the US under entrepreneurship, hosting them inside MBSC and enabling them to provide courses, either be it the MBA program or other courses that are focusing mainly on entrepreneurship, is going to hopefully jumpstart a lot of businesses in the economy.
Thank you very much, Brother Abdullah, and thank you for highlighting Babson College. We have an alumni from Babson College. She will join us later to present her and speech about her entrepreneurship experience and about the competition that Dr. Abdullah Al-Qurban Turkestani talked about with IE Business School and the Saudi Spanish Center for Islamic Economics. So now let's move to the second part of our session, which is the human capital. We discussed about ecosystem. Human capital is part of the ecosystem. So, and here again, I will quote Mitchell Kapor, who said, entrepreneurship, it's not only a mindset, but it's a skill set. So how to equip these talents with the skills? And maybe I will start with Ozan, because you've been here and you moved to US and you are so familiar with the region. So is the talent in IDB member countries less talented compared to other countries?
This was a question I had. I've been working in universities for the last 10 years as a professional. Although I don't look like one, I'm a CPA, which I was more focused on finance. It's an easy world, it's 1 and zeros. But in the entrepreneurship world, it's not that easy, it's not that straightforward. And I always had this linear approach: if you train people, they'll be good. Then I realized that no matter how trained people are, it's the soil that you put the seed that is as important as the seed's quality. So what I've seen here, I was in the region for 3 years creating accelerated programs with colleagues. The talent is as talented as everywhere. I think there's a very long tail of talent. There are geniuses, yes, and there are geniuses everywhere. I think talent is equally distributed in IDB member countries, in Europe, in anywhere else. You go, you see really talented people. The problem with that talented people is, like, we call them A++ startup founders. They need less of acceleration, they need less of funding, they will do things. And if you look at all the IDB member countries, all the European Union countries, all African countries, you can always name 1 or 2 entrepreneurs that have done it against all odds. They are geniuses, they're hard works, sometimes time, luck, and skill sets came together, but there's always 1 or 2 super leaders. The problem is when you go one step behind, when you go to A+ entrepreneurs, B+ entrepreneurs, where they need some resources, they need some guidance, although they have the skill set. And that's where the soil is really important. And through soil, I mean the ecosystem where the need to allow entrepreneurs, the pressing need to allow entrepreneurs. Innovation happens when there's trouble, when there is adverse circumstances, when you need to do something immediately, otherwise you're dead. Some of the IDB member countries, some of European countries, and some states in US and everywhere on the planet, I think they have grown fat. By that I mean there is not a pressing need to innovate really quickly, and everything is taking... one of the advices I was given when I first moved here, they said, "Şöyle şöyle Ozan." And I came here to run accelerated programs in contrast. So I said, "Mafi şöyle." If you are doing something slowly, it does not happen. They happen. If you wait, things will happen anyways, even if you don't do anything. But if you want things to change fast, you need to squeeze the time frame, squeeze the resource bundle, and really push people hard. I am pretty well known in this ecosystem to be a really brutal mentor, and I push people off their edge because somebody has to. If you don't push people to their limits, and if there's enough resources for them to survive, they go like, this is Saudi. You can't do these things this fast. Go slow, go slow. There is no time to go slow anymore. It is done, it's finished. The talent is here, the youth is here, and I don't mean the talent in the sense of there are great universities. Yes, there are great universities, but the individuals are talented. Everything they learn from outside of their universities, outside of their colleges. They're learning from the world now. So the talent is there. It's as talented as everywhere else. But you need to push them. If you keep on feeding them, this is same for every country, not only IDB member countries. If you keep on giving them what they haven't worked for hard, and they don't have the blood, sweat, and tears into whatever they're putting, they will not innovate. They will not risk. So they will not learn, so they will be behind. Push people to their edges for creativity, for creation, for research, for risking things. Socially, it should be acceptable to fail. Psychologically, it should be accepted to fail at something. And economically, it should be accepted to fail. The regional structures in creating startups and closing startups is playing a really huge role. Doctor said he paid debts for 14 years. That cannot be managed at all going forward. Whoever takes the risk, and it fails, it fails. It cannot be a life burden hanging on your head like a sword. Whatever happens, happens, and you move on. The system should enable you to move on economically as well. Not only like losing a family if you fail, why would anybody try then? No one will try, no one will learn, no one will follow, no matter how talented they are. So it is a really important matter to take hands, and it is placed, as your mother helped you to recover, it kind of lays in the hands of the previous generations to push people off their edges. The world has changed, and it's not, oh, the world has changed, now we have internet. No, the world has changed, and now we have everything going on at an unprecedented speed. So talent is there, but we need the right mindset to enable people to live without the fear of failure and without the fear of their future.
Thank you, Ozan. Thank you very much. So we do agree that the talent, maybe Dr. Jamal, you want to add something, but I want to ask you, what do you think the education output in our region? Does it align with the market requirements?
مهم جدا أنا أتفق مع زميلي fully agree with him. مهم جدا إنه لازم نعرف إنه الأجيال الجديدة ترى مختلفة تماما عننا. اليوم الشاب السعودي ما تقدر تميزه عن الشاب الباكستاني، ما تقدر تميزه عن الشاب المغربي، ما تقدر بيلبسوا نفس اللبس، بيتكلموا نفس الكلام، اهتماماتهم نفسها، وممكن حتى ما تقدر تميزه عن الشاب الغربي. العالم تغير. نحن مهم جدا انه نبطل نتحدث مع ابنائنا بالخطاب الديني والخطاب الوطني. في خطاب جديد لازم نتكلم معه. اولادنا ترى بيتركونا، ترى they don't give a damn care. اللي يبغى يروح امريكا، اللي يبغى يروح اوروبا، اللي يبغى يروح، العالم تغيرت، العالم تغير، ونحن ما زلنا مركزين في التخاطب معهم بالخطاب الديني وبالخطاب الوطني. نعم مهم الخطاب الديني، مهم الخطاب الوطني، لكن ما يكفوا. في خطاب ثالث مهم جدا، خطاب مصلحتي. What's in it for me؟ نحن للاسف الشديد بنركز على الانترنسينج موتيفز، المحفزات المعنويه، ومهملين تماما الاكسترنسينج موتيفز. What's in it for me؟ فاسلوبنا في التعامل مع الاجيال الجديده، اذا كنا نبغاهم يتحركوا ونبغى ندفعهم زي ما زميلي قال push، لازم يشعر انه what's in it for me، لازم يكون في عنده محفز. ايش عندي؟ انا بدرس في جامعه الدمام ماده اسمها critical thinking. استخدمت ماده الكريتيكال ثينكينج بحيث انه كل طالب يكتشف فرصته في فيجن 2030، وعملت اسسمنت. تعرف ما زال في لسه ريزيستنس ل 2030، فتقريبا كان عندي 87% من الطلبه تقريبا يعني مهملين موضوع فيجن 2030. لما بدانا الجيرني في السمستر على الكريتيكال ثينكينج اعتمادا لا على خطاب ديني ولا على خطاب وطني، على خطاب فين مصلحتك، وريني فين مصلحتك في الفيجن. لا تتخيلوا الامباكت، لا تتخيلوا الامباكت على النهايه. تقريبا كل واحد طلع فرصته. كان عندي بنت جننتني، كانت تنتقد بطريقة لا تتخيلوها. في الآخر قلت لها إيش اكتشفتي؟ قالت لي اكتشفت إنه مستقبل أولادي بخير. قلت لها إذن إيش مهمتك الآن؟ قالت مهمتي إني أنطم. مهمتي إني أنطم to give my mouth a rest. فالخطاب الثالث اللي هو الخطاب المهم what's in it for me الاكسترنسيك موتيف، فين مصلحتي. واتفق مع زميلي انه من هنا نقدر نعمل لهم البوش. شكرا.
شكرا دكتور جمال. Exactly this is what I told you this morning. This was the notes from your tweets that you are pushing young generations to link this the Vision 2030 to their own objectives. So what's in it for them? What's in it for them? So thank you. Now I'm going back to Amal. Please, Amal, can you if you do quick assessment of the current education system and how can we shift the education to much entrepreneurial preparation?
Okay. So I have a question for the audience first. All right? You ready to answer honestly? Okay. So how many of you really, when they first joined the workforce, felt that they were fully prepared for everything that was coming? Were you prepared for your careers and your first jobs that you took? None. Okay. Including myself, by the way. My second question. How many of you think that they are creative? Come on, a little bit. No, not really. You normally don't get more than 10, 20%. Okay. So the reason I asked you that, now the education system in general, globally, is accused to be a killer of creativity based on research. It kills creativity in the young generation, and that's dangerous. That is not only something that we have here in the MENA region, it's a global problem. That's why you see trends and you see programs that are trying to fix that. And I'm one of those people that was actually growing up on certain beliefs and certain ways of thinking, and I wasn't accepted, basically accepting to experiment. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to actually be seen as doing something that I'm not supposed to do, and I wanted the society to look at me in a way where they perceive me in a prestigious matter, right? I'm a successful person who's done what I should do. I'm an A student. I finished my college, and I did that. My first failure was when I joined medical school, and I couldn't finish, and then I had to choose something else. I chose that second, which is the education, 10 years in teaching, and then I changed again, and I moved into business. I got another degree, and then I opened 2 companies, and then I started teaching in universities as an assistant professor, and today I have a different career as well that could be related somehow remotely, to that, but somehow closely, in the core. Was I prepared for that? Not really. But I think environments around us is what pushes us, to either comply with what the society is making you to do, or to basically go and rebel if you see that there is a norm of trying something new, right? And that's why we should build that. I've worked in the education system in schools. I worked in universities. And today I worked with startups and corporate training. And I noticed that throughout all of that, what really matters is skills teaching. Show me how to do it. If you tell me how it's done, I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm not going to know how to apply it. But if you give me a methodology that will show you how to apply this, then I'll get out of that building and I'm going to go and try it. And I might fail, but it's okay. The methodology would support me, to go into something different. There's a very interesting study that's done in Harvard. They did a study over innovators from all around the world, including Fadi Ghandour, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, all these names that you hear about. And they said, what is the core that makes these people so innovative? They studied their daily life. What do they do at home? What do they do at work? What do they do socially? They found 5 common skills. The first one was questioning. They challenge the status quo. They ask about everything. There's nothing taken for granted. We're not trained in our region to ask questions. We're trained to accept. The second one, observation. Look at everything around you and get insights. Why is it happening? Ask why. Do not accept it the way it is. You have to know the reasons. We're not trained to observe and get insights. The third one, networking with different-minded people. We're trained to socialize with people we like, with people whom we agree with, and the way of thinking. Think of politics, think of football as an example. We don't like to actually sit in the same room with opponents, right? The fourth one is experimentation. Experiment on smaller scales. Try. Don't say, no, I'm not trained for that. You will find joy. And that's where you find innovation and new lands if you try something new every day. That's why an entrepreneur is revolving with new ideas every day, because they just keep trying. Didn't work, let's try something else. The fifth one is something called associational thinking. Meaning, I could draw from different industries and come up with a new idea. So we're not trained to, again, we always train to be in a certain sector. I am from the finance sector. I am from the education sector. But what will happen if I mingle with these people? Innovation may happen. So that's a very interesting one. If we can, so we don't need to change. We hope that the education system will change. But if it didn't change, what if we started to apply those 5 skills in day-to-day teaching in the schools, in day-to-day teaching in the universities, in day-to-day behaviors in companies? What's going to happen? Many things will change. And I'm going to share just 2 things that we've done in KAUST, and it was we wanted to experiment and to see if this is something that would work. So we tried an experiment, and the last one actually was with IDB, which is STEAM Challenge. STEAM Challenge is a 48 hours challenge. And the way it's designed is a very unique design. So students apply, they don't know what are they applying or what's the problem they will be solving. They know there's a challenge. In agreement with one of the companies, we take problems that the company is suffering from. And then we ask the students, we tell them that this is the industry. We don't tell them what's the problem. They apply from different universities. We had the last time 14 universities applying to that around the kingdom. We divide them into groups where we make sure they don't know who's going to be with them on the table. They don't know what's the problem. And we make sure there is cross-sectional backgrounds, marketing, finance, research, science, whatever, on the same table. Hand them the challenge in the morning. They open it, they're shocked. We guide them. We only facilitate. We don't teach. We teach the design methodology. They go through it. And at the end of the 48 hours, we have mentors from the company, experts in the field. They are shocked at the amount of innovation that comes out at the end of these sessions from people who have 0 experience in the field, young university students able to challenge the status quo, because people in corporates have experience. And we say that the main enemy of experience or main enemy of innovation is experience. It makes you think traditionally. You want to go back to what you know. You don't want to try something new. That's what I know. That's what I do, at work. I know it didn't work. Students don't care about that. So they came up with wonders. So that's one model we tried, just to prove that there is hope, there is creativity. Allow and give the right environment and see what happens. The second experiment that we tried basically is the experiment of the accelerated but over multidisciplinary, actually different backgrounds in different universities. So we started the program in KAUST called Taqaddam. It's in collaboration with SAB Bank. It's sponsored. So we wanted to allow the incubation. We wanted to allow the education. We wanted to allow not attending a program every day, but you have the freedom to go and do it yourself, with your own time, with the funding. Again, ideas came through. So it's about everything that my colleagues have spoken about. It's about unleashing. It's about teaching skills. It's about giving the environment, but creativity can be done. Let's not think we need to revamp everything. Let's work with what we have today and add to it. Those little changes will lead us to something at the end, and we'll figure out throughout the way. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Amal. Actually, remind me even the point that was raised earlier in the previous session by our friend from Egypt, when he said that in Egypt, we are willing to, parents want their kids to be engineers or doctors, which is my case, by the way. I was a med engineer for years after I changed completely. So this is the issue. Maybe we need preparation, we need policy recommendation, how to, from the early age. We will come to this later on, Amal, but let me go to Brother Abdullah. Do you agree about this? I mean, what Amal said, from your experience in human capital and previous position in King Abdullah Economic City or current one, how do you see and how, can you share with us the talent and the human capital development in the city?
Definitely. I mean, I have a personal opinion that is 100% in sync with what Amal highlighted. Simply today, the system of education is trying to maneuver people towards one direction, which was in the industrial age. We used to be either engineers and doctors not by coincidence, but actually even by design. Because that was the system of education that wanted to build those people towards those different industries. Today, we're trying to educate our kids towards either businesses and jobs that are not created, so we don't know what is the future. They're going to use technologies that are not created today. So it's almost like the most impossible approach that you can do, because you're analyzing the trends, you're trying to understand what are the new trends that are coming to the market, trying to adopt it very quickly in the system that is a very rigid system. It's hard to actually adopt and change, and hoping that the effect is going to be positive. So education, I mean, in reality, needs to have a major reform, and I think today education is going beyond the classroom. So it's not only the textbook, it's not only the teacher. That was our old days, because we used to have one or two different resources, either the book or the teachers. Those are the resources that we used to have in our days. In my kids' days today, Ahmed has his ability to navigate the net and find more resources and more information, and under his fingertips is literally grade 7 and 8 and even grade 12 material that he wants to navigate in. So education overall, I feel is actually reforming and changing and going beyond the boundaries of the classroom. Now, one other element that I think is key to touch upon, because we touched upon entrepreneurship and it's more of the white collar approach. I feel that the blue collar as well within Kingdom of Saudi Arabia needs a focus area. Today, even when we look at the World Economic Forum and we see our figures when it comes to the Human Capital Index, we will find that we are almost in the 87% figure or rank. Simply for one key reason, by the way, is our technical and vocational graduation rates. Today, we only have 2% of the population under what we call the TVET, so technical vocational training and education. And unfortunately, that is depriving us from almost 500,000 of job opportunities that are available for Saudis today. And we are not tapping into that because we do not have the technical skills to do that. One of the key highlights of King Abdullah Economical City is that we have a program called Tumuh. The whole concept of Tumuh is that we take key areas that are around the city, so the neighboring cities like Rabigh, like Sa'bar, like Layya, and we tap into those students that are graduating from schools there, and we enroll them in a program that is focusing mainly on technical and vocational skills, so they can be reintegrated in the workforce of the different industrial institutes that we're having in the city, or within the factories that we're having in the city, or as well in the port. So the last program of the last round of Tumuh witnessed the graduation of 1,000 students from all of these neighboring cities. And today, we're happy to announce that we have 200 of them integrated in the workforce. And the program is actually honored by Prince Khalid bin Khalid Al Faisal, and it's going to continue for the coming 4 years, graduating up to 5,000 people from around the Western region. So that is where I think a key opportunity area lies for Saudis, which is blue-collar workforce, and trying to reintegrate them, trying to develop them in the right pace so they can actually adopt in that workplace.
Shukran, Dr. Abdullah. Actually, I see that almost we all agree that maybe, as Ozan said, in 10 years, maybe we won't hear about university. The education system will completely change. Maybe Dr. Biddi will think about it in the future activities of IDB. And here I want to highlight one of leading experience that we had in IRTI, which is the MOOCs. Actually, we're trying to democratize Islamic finance learning. We did the MOOCs, which is in edX. So trying to get more people the purpose is really to democratize and to have more people learning about Islamic finance on the net. Let's before going to our guests, I want to ask you two final questions. The first one, what about policy recommendation for at the three levels: the early age, the university, and after university? This is the first question. And the second question, what role can Islamic finance play in enhancing entrepreneurship? I want to take the floor first.
Right. I can talk about the education part here. So I think for the early age, where it's just a matter of exposing them to more, of what is needed based on the area where they are, right? I think the problem today, we get what's available again on the shelf and we just give it to everyone. Right. At the early stage, you need to allow room for them to experiment and really try new things, at this age. It should not be curriculums. It should not be fixed things. It's about enabling, what can they do, in terms of understanding their personalities, in terms of why a child would behave this way. Can we allow, a different way of thinking or a different way of actually doing things? Like Montessori programs, long time ago when it first started. It was revolutionary at that time because it allowed a child to choose what he wants to do for the day. There is no fixed curriculum, there is concepts. So he wants to do math today, he'll go and do math. He wants to do language, he would go and do language. And there was a period of time where they tried to apply Montessori to other ages, to older, stages as well, which actually worked pretty well, but with adjustments as well. So I think that freedom and allowance, for the early stages quite needed highly. For universities, I think it's about matching, their skills and what they have to know to what are the possibilities of what I can do. Can I experiment and try? Let's say I want to be an entrepreneur. Can I have a startup during my college, for example? Can I try it and see how that would work out? If there is interest, in different companies where they can allow and they say these are the areas that we need, and they can link it with the universities, and students can actually go and try, different jobs at different, kind of stages in the college years, that would be really something good. What's happening today, you go and do your training. You go for 6 months and that's it. You're done. You spent all that long, whether you like it or not. You've already chose it, right? So there isn't really flexibility in the way, they can do things. And I think we need a study for us. We need to look into what our students want, today. We can assume about so many things. We can stereotype about students in the Islamic world, but we need to find out what's unique about every region. And after the university, I think that's up to us as adults. I think we need to be open to learning more and new experiences every day, and you don't know what might open up, at the end of the day. Like we're here today attending this conference and this forum here, looking for new ideas. We don't know what are you thinking of, but each one of you is linking that, to something. Maybe that works. Maybe you're skeptical. Maybe you want to get out of this room and you want to go and try something new directly, and maybe I can try, to look into this topic. So we look and see for inspiration because we lack that inspiration in our day-to-day life and in our jobs. So I think it's up to us to go and explore and see what can be done, in that field. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So in terms of Islamic finance, as I said, I'm a CPA. I worked in Deloitte for many years, auditing very large companies, and then I moved on to different fields as Amal had gone in her life. What I have in mind for finance is a bunch of resources and abundance of resources. And I was mentioning this a little while ago on that the countries that are prosper have becoming a little fat in terms of not needing to innovate faster. But here's a question to you. Who buys the kids' cars and house and pays the rent and gives the kid a subsidy after they graduate in the developed economies in let's take example, US, versus who does that in the Islamic development, IDB's member countries? Most of the time, it's the father and the mother who keeps on feeding and feeding and feeding the kids, even when they're graduated. After they graduate, they buy their first car. After they go, they buy their first house. When they marry, they buy whatever is needed for the marriage. What happens to that people when they have struggles in their life financially? They go back and ask for help from their parents, from their relatives, from their near environment. That's the opposite of feeding people and versus making them leaner, making them more agile. 5, 6, 7 years of age, the kids are on the street selling cookies. The famous lemonade stand economics. They teach the kids that they can build something and sell something, and if they don't sell something, they need to face the consequences. They saved the money, they made something, and nobody's buying it, so they lost the money. Do they learn anything? Of course they do. I was a member, I was actually head of the consultancy group and the head trainer for something called Junior Achievement Young Enterprise. We were teaching kids at the middle school how to create companies on a board like a Monopoly game. And believe it or not, at the end of 13, 14 weeks, we did this for high schoolers as well, we did this for middle schoolers. They were really creating businesses that made money within the confines of the game. They made $10, $20, $50, $100. Some of them made $1,000 by just creating value in a small box game. And then after that, they learned that they can actually see a problem, build resources, and execute, and make money, make a living, create value, and not charity value, not playing the goodwills of their families and their relatives, really going out on the street, creating value for their school environment, creating value for their neighborhood, creating value for their apartment houses. So we need to be able to understand that giving, it's a famous saying, I don't want to repeat that, don't give the man a fish, teach the man how to fish. Yeah, of course. But in that real life, we don't usually do it. We feel we're responsible at a very late age, until their 30s and 40s, and to kids. Just let them survive. Teach them how they should survive, that they should take responsibility of their finances as well, and they should manage. If they fail, of course, it's never a good idea to leave them out on the street, but they should feel that they need to put in as much effort as their parents have before. So the agility, I think, in finance is lost in the new generations, and we need to bring it back. In Islamic finance as well, it doesn't mean that we need to culturally do everything that's done in other countries. The culture plays a huge role, important role, but there is abundance of resources, and I don't think the abundance of resources helping the new generation. So there has to be mechanisms and tools and programs that kind of keep the new generation on their toes, that they need to make their own life, not depend on subsidies, not depend on money from their parents, and not depend on scholarships and grants. They need to make a living. And it's very hard to embed this into kids, into people who are older than 20, 25. So I don't think this generation after high school, after universities, they will learn it the hard way. But I think we can easily focus on the new generation, 7 to 10 years old or 0 to 10 years old today. And in 10 years' time, they will have a different sense of financial responsibility in their life.
Thank you, Ozan. Actually, we do work in IRTI on a program which is the Global Curriculum for Education of Islamic Finance and Education. And we do believe as well that Islamic finance is the finance that links finance world to the economy, to the real economy. So although there is a need of, according to the statistics, of 1 million by 2020 of talents in Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions, however, we do need these graduates of Islamic finance to be entrepreneurs, to apply this knowledge they acquired in the real field of the real economy. So before starting the next session, showcasing the wide competition of Saudi Spanish Islamic Economic Center, we will take maximum 2 to 3 questions from the participants. We have lady.
السلام عليكم. معكم إيمان جنبي. ممكن أقول عن نفسي إني entrepreneur. بس برضو عندي يعني مجال خبرة وقد درست قبل كده، فممكن يعني بخلط الاثنين مع بعض. في عنصر أنا كنت حابة أسمع آراءكم عليه، وهو عنصر المستهلك في الإيكو سيستم حق الإيكونومي. خلال ال10 سنين الماضية I think كل أحد يقدر يشوف إنه في دعم وفي جهودات وأنشطة مرة كثير تخلي اليوث اللي احنا خلينا نتفق إن هم مثلا ما بين 16 وال 33 عشان أدخل تحتهم، بتحمسهم إن هم يصيروا entrepreneurs. عشان كده الأستاذ عبد الله قال إحنا في الموتيفيشن نحن ممكن نكون نمبر 1، لكن احنا وصلنا لمرحلة إنه فعليا أنا أتكلم مع ناس أعمار يعني في سن التخرج من الجامعة يقولوا أوكي أنا أبغى أصير ريادي أعمال أو أنا أبغى أصير entrepreneur. طيب ليش؟ ما في إجابة. أوكي. أنا أحس إنه الجامعات أو الإديوكيشن سيستم ممكن زي ما هو بيعمل جهود وطاقات إنه يخلي العالم تصير entrepreneurs، يوعيها عن قوة المستهلك. لأن المستهلك لما يبغى يستهلك شيء محلي أو يبغى يستهلك شيء مصنوع من أولاد بلده، سواء كانت خدمة أو منتج، يساعدني أنا as an entrepreneur. والجامعات والأماكن التعليمية لها قوة مرة كبيرة على المستهلكين في توعيتهم في الاقتصاد والعلم وكل شيء. فلو هي بس توعيهم إنه زي ما تشتري من ستاربكس ممكن تشتري من اللي بيبيع على الشارع شاهي ونسكافيه، حيخلي هذا اللي بيبيع على الشارع حيخليه يجني أكتر. وهذا هو اليوث اليونج انتربرنور اللي هو ممكن يغير في الايكونومي. فاحب اسمع ارائكم على هذه النقطه.
شكرا. اسم الكريم؟
ايمان جنبي.
I'll just give a quick note.
We have a question.
Okay, we'll take the question. Is it the left or the right?
شكرا سعادة الرئيس، شكرا للمتحدثين. أنا أولا بس أحب أشكر البنك، مجموعة بنك التنمية، على أنه اختار الشباب في هذا المنتدى، يعني مكان حوار ونقاش، وأنا أعتقد أنه الشباب يستحقون هذا أن يخصص لهم هذه المساحة من هذا الملتقى. أحب أيضا أبدأ بما انتهى إليه آخر متحدث، هو أنه يتحدث عن التعليم التطبيقي. والتعليم التطبيقي لا شك أنه هو الذي يبدأ في تمكين الشباب. حتى تمكن شاب تبدأ هذا النوع المتدرج الذي سمعنا في هذه التجارب في المدرسة، ثم ينتهي، وبالتالي أنت تحقق أهداف المنهج. المنهج له أهداف تطبيقية وأهداف سلوكية، يعني تراه في المجتمع يتمثل الأهداف السلوكية، وهي الالتزام، العمل، يؤدي واجبه اليومي المطلوب منه داخل أسرته وفي اتجاه واجبات المدرسية، وبالتالي تؤسس لشباب يعني عندهم تمكين ابتدائي. ثم أعود إلى بداية الحديث مع الدكتور جمال. الدكتور جمال تحدث عن لفظة ريادة لا شك هي قبعة تضعها على كل الناجحين، سواء في التربية أو الاقتصاد أو العلوم وإلى آخره. لكن الدكتور جمال يتحدث أيضا عن أنه كأنما يطلب أنه نحن يرغب أنه نقفز المراحل. الآن الرؤية عندنا في المملكة 2030 تتحدث عن اقتصاد المعرفة. الدكتور جمال يتحدث عن اقتصاد الكرامات. ممكن كاوست الآن هي عندها هذه النظرية ووصلت إليها، لكن حتى يعني فعلا أنه لابد أن يكون في تدرج مرحلي ومنطقي ويمشي مع الواقع. اقتصاد المعرفة اليوم هو الحديث في المملكة العربية السعودية، وحتى الجامعات الآن تشتغل عليه. جامعاتنا في المملكة العربية السعودية أنتم أحد أعضاء الجامعات. أيضا دكتور جمال، أنا أيضا أعتقد أنه علينا أن نؤكد الهوية الوطنية في الإنسان. عندما تكون أنت يعني سيلفش فقط أنك تبحث عن حاجتك وتركز عليها، أنت عندك مجتمع، عندك أسرة، عندك وطن، عليك فعلا أنه هذه الأمور أنه نرسخها بشبابنا. نعم عليهم يركزوا على مصلحتهم وين اتجاههم، تبني هذا التوجه حسب مهارته، لكنه نغفل الهوية الوطنية، نغفل أيضا المعتقد الديني، نقول له أنه أنت لا تركز على هذه الأمور، ركز على مصلحتك. أنا أعتقد أنه فعلا إحنا نأخذ إلى مسار مختلف. صحيح أنه اليوم شبابنا لا تفرقهم كثير عن شباب العالم، وعمر بن الخطاب يقول أبناؤنا خلقوا لزمان غير زماننا. كل شباب كل أمة. أنت الآن والدك يرى أنك أنت مثلا، وأنا والدي يرى أني مختلف عنه، وهكذا، وكل جيل يختلف عن الآخر، وبالتالي أبناؤنا فعلا خلقوا لزمن غير زماننا. أنا حديثكم جميل وأنا يعني تربوي، ولكن استمتعت كثير بما تفضلت به، واعتقد انه ان شاء الله تكون في توصيات يعني في نهايه هذا الملتقى. شكرا لك.
شكرا جزاك الله. وراك we have 2 more questions please on the right, the third and on the center.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Anis bin Amran, faculty member in College of Business, Al-Quran University, and marketing guy, and also I am TOT of entrepreneurship. I would speak in Arabic if you want. طيب عندي ملاحظتين جايه من تجربتي. اولا كيف نبغى نغرس ثقافه المقاوله عند الطلاب قبل ان نتحدث عن الفاكولتي ممبرز.
مقاولة وريادة الأعمال.
مقاولة وريادة الأعمال الاثنين. Social entrepreneurship and business creation. طيب أول فكرة هي كيف نغرس ريادة الأعمال والمقاولة في جيل قبل أن نتحدث عن الفاكولتي ممبرز اللي هم أصلا تقليديين في طريقة إعطاء الكورس. إذا أنا كنت شاركت في تونس في دورة مع الجي آي زد، وهو عندنا جي آي زد منها هنا. كانت الدورة في خلق مجموعة من TOT trainer في الانتربرنورشيب، وكانت مبنية على الكوتشنج ابروتش، كيف ندرب يعني الفاكولتي ممبرز تو تيتش انتربرنورشيب. وكانت تجربة رائعة، ويعني تحول فيها طريقة تدريس انتربرنورشيب وأصبحت طريقة تفاعلية مع الطلاب، وفيها كيس ستادي، وفيها معناها جيم رول اكسترا. أصبح طريقة قبول الطالب لفكرة انتربرنورشيب قبل أن نتحدث عن بزنس كرييشن، بزنس بلان، نتحدث على سوشيال انتربرنورشيب، ويعني تحفيز الطلاب في مجموعات وفي التفكير على مشاريع سوشيال في الانفايرمنت، الكلوز انفايرمنت. هذه النقطة الأولى. النقطة الثانية تو تيتش انتربرنورشيب وغرس ثقافة الانتربرنورشيب تبدأ كذلك من فاكولتي ممبرز في إتاحة الفرصة هو يكون انتربرنور. وكذلك كانت عندي فرصة أنا كنت فاكولتي ممبرز وفي نفس الوقت يعني عندي بزنس. اليوم اللي سويت فيه بزنس الطلاب أصلا لاحظوا الفرق ما بين طريقة تدريسي التقليدية في الماركتينج والطريقة الجديدة. إذن هنا قوس بالنسبة للإطار القانوني بالنسبة للبزنس كرييشن ويعني الانتربرنورشيب فور فاكولتي ممبرز. مثلا في أمريكا ما فيش ولا حرج عشان يكون فاكولتي ممبرز في نفس الوقت في نفس الفاكولتي يكون عنده بزنس، بل بالعكس تكون عنده قيمة أكبر. كذلك في ألمانيا معروفة التجربة. إذا هنا الفكرة هي هوليستيك زي ما قالوا قبل شوية، يعني نبدأ من الطالب، لكن the point is to يعني to go forward, to go back للشخص اللي بيعطي الفكرة. شكرا.
شكرا دكتور أنيس for this. The final question here please.
Edmund from Albania, participant of the Youth Summit and actually living in London. I just, it's like a new theory that they're saying like how entrepreneurship is somehow killing entrepreneurship and harming our economy, because everywhere in every table, here now lately, but also all around the West, everybody's pushing the youth, become an entrepreneur, become an entrepreneur, become an entrepreneur. And we all know that not everybody can become an entrepreneur. Yes. And we all know that we need, you know, teachers, and we need professors, and we need engineers, and we need, you know, football players, or all the rest of the professions that we have. So, what's your comments about this topic? So, how can we push people to become entrepreneurs, but without creating this massive idea that everybody can become like the next Steve Jobs or all this kind of prototypes? And how can we protect our youth from dreaming things that might be realistically difficult to achieve, and this way also protect our economy, so we can have more as we said, teachers and doctors and engineers. Thank you.
Shukran. So please.
Would you allow me to
Okay.
take that? So I'm going to take it from the last question, actually, if you don't mind. It's very interesting what you just said. Yes, we do need doctors, we do need engineers, we're not here to diminish all of that. And what you said that entrepreneurship could be killing entrepreneurship, I think you're quite right, because it's creating that pressure where people don't know what to do and they just want to become entrepreneurs. زي ما قلت يا إيمان إنه كل واحد يبغى يصير entrepreneur ما هو عارف ليش. هو ما هو عارف ليش عشان شافها موضة. وشاف في ناس كتير بيقولوا أنا entrepreneur وأبغى أصير زيهم وأبغى الناس تتكلم عني ويقولوا عني entrepreneur وأنا special وأنا بدأت حاجة حتى لو راح أشتغل ترى أنا I was an ex-entrepreneur حتى لو ما نجحت الشركة حقته. So it became a trend that people want to be entrepreneur and we need more. And that's where we say we need more awareness and we need more education, to show what is it. Today, one of the things that we've done in KAUST, for example, we do have the core of KAUST is scientists and research, basically researchers. But what is needed is that a scientist, when he goes to the lab, he needs to think entrepreneurially, right? We don't want him to become an entrepreneur. I want him to be in the lab. I want him to innovate. I want him to come up with the new technologies and then be able to benefit with this technology where it could be applied for the human need and for the humans, basically, application. What are we going to do? There is research for the sake of research, and there is actually research for the sake of applying it to human needs. And that's what we're trying to see, what can we do today? That's what we're educating the researchers to think, what can I do with my technology and how can I get it to the market faster, or how can I apply it, how could companies use it, and so on and so forth. So I think you're very much right. Yes, we don't want to lose this core. I think there is a huge role for universities to educate that an entrepreneurial engineer will have a better impact. We do have big names of doctors that were so innovative in creating new surgeries because they wanted to think differently, because they came up with new ways of operating over patients with new techniques, using technologies, and now they're healing more patients. Those are the ones that we're looking for. So I don't think entrepreneurship is an education, should be addressed. It might be misunderstood today that it should provide startups at the end of the day, but that's not the point. We want people who can create and think differently in every core. Whether you are a teacher, you need to create a new thing that fits every consumer and every student that you have. You're a doctor, you need to go and see why the current methodologies are not working. Today you see a lot in genomics, where people are getting these tools to actually help them to analyze more diseases, right? So we want doctors not to resist the new technology that can help heal patients and to be open to that. That's why we say thinking entrepreneurially, right? And I think that's a very big topic, to be addressed at this point. But that's what I see. I think it's the way of teaching them, and maybe we need more awareness into that, and entrepreneurship is basically there to help and to assess, and not to really kill or eliminate any of the current careers that exist.
I think it comes back to your point, which is the design.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
I think we're missing the point of we talk about design thinking, and design thinking is basically designing for the people. What do I need? When I teach a doctor, when I teach a researcher, how do I design that curriculum where it assists you and not work against you? We did that course in KAUST for the trial. It was the first elective course a few months ago. Out of 30 students, we had only 2 that decided to start a company, and that's great, because we didn't want them to start companies. We wanted them to go back to the lab and say, instead of spending 5 years working on a technology that nobody wants, that will be put on the shelf as a patent that costs so much, no. I'm going to go and talk to whomever is going to use it, whether it's SABIC or Aramco or whomever is that corporate, and then I will only spend what's needed and I will create for them. And I'll go create something else. And I think that's basically what we are aspiring by spreading that entrepreneurial education.
Thank you, Ahmed. Dr. Jamal.
والله أنا أول شيء بس أرد على نقطة الأستاذ الزايدي. أنا قلت الخطاب الديني والخطاب الوطني لا يكفوا. محتاجين لخطاب ثالث اللي هو خطاب المصلحة الفردية. النقطة الثانية مسألة إنه نحن في رؤية 2030 بنتكلم عن الاقتصاد المعرفي. هذا لا يعني أننا لا نفكر بما وراء الاقتصاد المعرفي إذا كنا نبغى نتعايش مع التسارع المرعب اللي حاصل. بالنسبة هذه النقطة أنا حقولها بالإنجليزي. Usually I don't encourage people to become entrepreneurs. I wait for those who discovered a problem and came up with an idea to solve it in order to help a specific audience in facing this problem, and at the same time pay them back. I never encourage people to become entrepreneurs because, by the way, this is very dangerous. Very dangerous, okay? And by the way, those who are entrepreneurs, in percentage, they vary between 1 to 7% maximum in any society. This is by research. Sorry, I'm disconnected. I'm blocked. أنا آسف. مسألة إنه ندفع الناس إنهم يكونوا رياديي أعمال، ترى مسألة خطيرة جدا. هذه ممكن تدخلنا في متاهة الرأسمالية المتوحشة. نحن ما نبغى رأسمالية متوحشة. وزي ما قلت في البداية وأشارت برضو الأخت أمل إنه الريادة فكر. فأنا ممكن أكون ريادي، مهندس ريادي في تفكيري، في أستاذ ريادي في تفكيري. فكلمة الريادية نحن محتاجين نصلح مفهومها. بالنسبة لنقطة الإديوكيشن، في كانت نقطة أعتقد إنه we need to skip a generation. بمعنى أعتقد إن إحنا we need to skip a generation. التعليم محتاجين نفكر فيه بطريقة مختلفة. المراحل التعليمية الأولانية نحن محتاجين إنه نبني فيها، إنه نقدم mindset education. الهاي سكول نقدم فيها incubators type education، والجامعات نقدم فيها accelerators type education. شكرا.
شكرا دكتور جمال. أوزان and Brother Abdullah, please.
But skip a generation.
Yalla, so if you're older than 30, you're done. So I'll kind of blend a couple of questions. Entrepreneurship, I mean, in the world, there's a wrong expectation, as our friend said. Like, being an entrepreneur means trying to become rich, trying to create a company, try to be next Steve Jobs. And if those are the examples that we use in encouraging people to become entrepreneurial, that's wrong, because that's built on a certain type of value creation, which is wealth. However, entrepreneurship by itself, as our friend mentioned, it's not only wealth creation, it's value creation. So if we try and teach people the methodologies, the tools, the reasons how they can create more value, it can help the trainers as well, that what they're teaching by itself is not valuable anymore because it's context. But they have to be able to provide enough tools to create the content and trial methodology. So if you are only an academic who only started an undergraduate and then a degree and then a PhD and only created, if you think your value is just delivering content, that's not value creation. That's repeating what you learned from different places and maybe doing some research, but if you're not creating anything, it's not value creation, it's just teaching. That's what I mean by the universities will change in 10 years. It's not going to be teaching anymore. Content will be there. If you go very crazy, it will be like Matrix. You'll plug something in and you'll have the content. But you'll not have the context. And that context is value creation. It depends on where you are. And I think the entrepreneurship education should focus on that context of value creation, should teach everyone the tools and mindset in identifying what value should be creating, what problem could be solved. But not everybody has to create a startup. You can be an entrepreneur in the university. You could be an entrepreneur in your company. You can be an entrepreneur in the family. You don't have to be an entrepreneur and create a startup by necessarily. But if that's the only glorified version, and I'm coming from an area where whoever you touch is like creating a next billion-dollar company. And a lot of the times there are some people who are kind of objecting to that completely and not raising funds, not creating a billion-dollar company, but creating value to solve a certain problem. So I think training people and finding faculty, practitioners, who have created value in their life other than just teaching. I mean, I have no objections in professors teaching the tools on engineering, for example. But when it comes to business, if people don't have any business background, who haven't done anything in their life except for teaching, they should not teach business. Maybe I'll be hanged right after I said that. But people who don't know how to balance their own finances in their own company should not teach balance sheet, because they don't know how to balance, what the problems are. Who haven't done any marketing in their life to sell their own product should not teach marketing, because they don't know what the real problems, what the real challenges, what the suffering and the sweat and tears comes from. Okay. So that's really important. And
Thank you very much.
Okay,
the point of the value creation is really, I see that you are from Silicon Valley and you are living in Silicon Valley. How to make life better, how to make life easier. This is the drive and the motive of all entrepreneurs in the Bay Area and the Silicon Valley.
Everywhere should be focusing on value creation, and it starts locally.
Exactly.
Before it starts this glorified version of Silicon Valley. It's not as it seems from outside.
Brother Abdullah.
I mean, I'll try to answer Iman's question and Eden, our brother from Albania. Because for me, actually, I think entrepreneurship should be classified as a mindset beyond actually the industry itself, where we call entrepreneurship as the business entrepreneurship. Because you can be an entrepreneur as an engineer, you can be an entrepreneur as a doctor. And it comes back to what Ozan was highlighting, which is the value creation. So if you can create value within the industry that you have and disrupt that industry, that is clearly who we call entrepreneur. So regardless of the industry that you are in, definitely there is an opportunity there to create value. And if you create that value, coming to Iman's question, consumers are going to adopt to it, because they are going to take that value. So if you study the market in the best possible way, you understand what is the opportunities that are there, and then adopt a value-created model that can be bought by those customers, then you already solve the issue. And that helps us actually in terms of the entrepreneurs killing entrepreneurship, as per se. Because if each and every person is focusing on entrepreneurship in his own industry, literally the flourishing ground becomes much bigger than just focusing on certain businesses and certain industries, calling them and labeling them entrepreneurs, and trying to only focus on delivering the value in that industry. So starting from Steve Jobs as being an entrepreneur when it comes to the technology industry, and we can have multiple others in other industries around the world. So that's how I see that entrepreneurship is going to flourish beyond just focusing on one industry and trying to drive it and drive it to the fullest.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our distinguished guests. By here we close out the first part of the session. We will continue with the second part for 30 minutes presentation with the white competition. Thank you. Yeah. Invite Mr. Gonzalo Rodriguez, Brother Tawfiq Hidayat, and Sister Lulwa Suderi, please.
I just want to make a quick announcement. We are supposed to give the certificates to people who registered. We want to let you know that if you already registered online, we will have your email address, so we will email your certificate of participation. If you haven't registered before, so we will be happy to get your information, and then we will email you the copy of the certificate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Osman. Okay. So the session, as I said, it will be 25 minutes. We will start with Mr. Gonzalo Rodriguez, the General Coordinator of the Saudi Spanish Center for Islamic Economics.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to explain first of all, who we are and where do we come from and what is the Saudi Spanish Center for Islamic Economics and Finance, and what is this weird competition experience that we have been doing for many years at IE Business School. I will try to explain quite fast how we build this relationship between IE Business School, which is one of the best business schools and universities in the world, and the King Abdulaziz University, of course. And what are the main achievements we have done, and finally, what does mean this weird competition? Some of the panelists before told something very interesting, and it was that innovation happens when there is problems, which I really agree with that phrase. And to put you in context, as you know, in 2008, there was a huge crisis in the whole world, in Europe, and especially in Spain. And some of us believe that Islamic finance has a lot of innovation. And we start some conversations between IE and King Abdulaziz University in order to make something in Islamic finance. And in 2009, King Abdulaziz University and IE wanted to further the field and sign this contract and co-develop this center in Islamic economics and finance under the patronage of the Saudi Minister of Higher Education, Mr. Dr. Alangari, and IE University President Rafael Pujol. Our vision was to be the leading Islamic finance center in Europe. We have 4 main pillars: academic development, in order to become a reference in scientific research and academic material development, student strategies. Engaging business community, not only the normal business community as everybody knows, as, I don't know, big companies, law firms, but only the young people. Also international awareness. We are always joined all the important symposiums and conferences all around the world related to Islamic economics and finance. And research, of course. We are an academical institution, and we want to become a reference resource center. What we do? We do models in Islamic finance in the MBAs, for example, which is something quite strange in Europe. We made lectures and conferences and multimedia and e-sites, and we develop academic materials, case studies, activities, technical notes, in the daily basis of our business school. We try to make every year high-level conference with global impact. So we have been, for example, in Bolsa de Madrid, the exchange market. And for example, last year, the governor of the Central Bank of Spain came to our center, and for the very first time, he said that Islamic finance has something important to say in Spain. And that, I think, was a new beginning for the industry in Spain. We have created also a think tank in order to lobby with all these, with the government, in order to change as much as possible the legislation and to make it real, the trade and the Islamic finance industry in Spain. And of course, we have made this what is out there competition. And international awareness is other of our pillars. We have a website, we are in LinkedIn, in Twitter, in YouTube, or in Facebook, where we have more than 10,000 followers all over the world. So we try always to make a real impact in the social media, and we are always in as much as conferences and newspapers and trying to make this impact. And of course, as you know, this was an important moment when, during the inauguration ceremony of the center, we had at IE Business School Her Excellency Dr. Ahmed Ali, the president of the Islamic Development Bank in that time. And of course, research is also important for us. We promote as much as possible all the research as we can in our center. We try to publish a book every year. We have also monthly seminars with Sorbonne University and King Abdulaziz University as well. And we have created a yearly report about Islamic finance in Spain, and that's what we do in our daily basis. Okay, and why this weird competition? Weird competition means what is out there. So we are trying to look for smart and innovative young leaders around the world to make things happen. Our vision was foster new ways of getting funds to run projects or initiatives. Understand the views of the youth and possible alternatives to the present financial practices, and help them look into the new alternative ways that Islamic finance, ethical banking, and other non-banking alternatives can provide to their financial future. Everybody knows the causes of the financial crisis. So what we have seen is that there is a real social move that demands financial organizations to move to emphasize more the real economy as opposite to the financial economy that has been trend in the last years. So what we were looking was innovative ideas that can make a real impact in their own societies. I think we have here two good examples of people that have led their communities with their financial, with new ways to think their own projects, and with looking at a real positive and lasting impact in their communities. Everybody knows that the youth were the most affected by the situation because they will be the ones that have to bear the excess leverage on the present generation, and they have very limited access to the financial resources needed to make their own economic ventures. So our aim with our competition has been always find and support innovative strategies for financing their social impact projects. And that's what we have been doing during all these years, and what we have been looking for. Also, as you know, the industry, and especially the banking industry, is changing very, very rapidly, very fast. And for the next years, and we are going to start this year, with the support of IDB, we're going to innovate also our innovation competition, and we are going to focus on fintech. And because we are trying to show how technology in Islamic finance can also make a real impact in the communities and in the Islamic world. Okay?
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. So now we have the two winners of the two last competition, of the white competition. Brother Tawfiq, allow me to, so Sister Lulu, I will start first.
Thank you. So, there's no presentation.
The presentation. Please, the presentation, Artistia. So, as I said, Sister Lulu Al-Sudairi is the founder of Artista.com, and she is an MBA alumni of Babson College, and she is an alumni of the second cohort of WIN, which is Women Innovating Now Lab, which is a year-long residency program for women entrepreneurship in Boston. And she won the second place in the MIT Enterprise Forum in KSA in Saudi Arabia and White Competition 2016. Please, sister.
Thank you, Hassan. So, Artistia is basically, can I have the clicker? Thank you. So, an overview about art. Art can be a concept like a painting,
or fine arts. It can be with a functional use, artisanal use, like furniture, accessories, apparel, gifts, souvenirs, you name it. I have a short video to show you. It's an animated video about Artistia. It's in Arabic, but I will explain it in English as well.
سارة معجبة بالتصاميم الفريدة، لكن لم تجد منتجات مميزة بسهولة ولا تعرف علي الذي يمتلك تصاميم رائعة للبيع. كيف لسارة أن تشتري بشكل أسرع وبخدمة عملاء مميزة ودفع فوري دون أن تفكر في مسألة الشحن؟ هنا دورنا في artistia.com، سوق إلكتروني بطابع اجتماعي للتسوق والتفاعل مع الفنانين والمصممين والحرفيين. الآن بإمكان علي إنشاء متجره لعرض تصاميمه، وتمكنت سارة من إيجاد منتجات مميزة بسهولة. كن جزءاً من سوق Artistia اليوم.
So Artistia.com is a social online marketplace to buy directly from local artists and designers across the Middle East. Our aim really is to encourage local production and foster the new generation of creative entrepreneurs. So in simple terms, we're linking buyers to sellers, and we're also content producers. We're telling the stories of local products in order to create trust with the consumer base so that they can buy locally instead of from abroad. This is one of the most selling paintings on Artistia. I'm just kidding. This is the growth curve that we've been through. In an ideal world, it would be the white line, but actually it's the green line you see. We've been through sustainable growth and strategic ones, and we've been through random and unsustainable growth. Now, some things worth noting throughout our journey is when we did the pilot program. I was in my second year doing the MBA at Babson College, and with two of my co-founders, we decided to do an offline marketplace where we invited seven sellers from the US and 7 from the region in an attempt to see where do people buy more and where does demand come from. We thought originally that Middle Eastern products would be wanted in the US. But we actually found that Middle Easterns bought most of the products. So it was from the Middle East to the Middle East. And we targeted a need rather than to the US. And we decided to pivot our business model. Now, in our journey, if you are a keen observer, you would notice something in this timeline, which is the amount of time we took from 2014 to 2015 in planning, which is based on assumptions. As soon as we launched in September 2015, we realized that all the plans we've done went to waste, right? Because we had new facts. And this is really one of our advisors' recommendation. He pushed us to go into the market as soon as possible. But if it was up to us, we would have taken so much longer. And then now we're in several countries in the GCC. We have sellers from there, demand coming from there as well. And we're launching Artistia 2.0 in the beginning of the new year. Another fact is that that we faced is a shortage and gap of talent. Now, if you ask a US-based person, would you want to join a startup or have a corporate job? Most of them would say startup, because they realize that there is, owning a share in the company can be so much bigger than having a salary. But when it comes to this region, it's the opposite. We had to educate because we were hiring locally, we had to educate a lot of our employees that, you can have a share in the company, we're bootstrapping, you need to believe in the idea with us, you're a founder as well. So we had to do a lot of education, but it didn't come naturally, and it doesn't come naturally so far. But luckily, it's stuck. Okay. Luckily, we're a team of 7 now, 3 co-founders, myself. I did my MBA at Babson, and Lina Al-Aufi is my co-founder. She graduated from Northeastern Information Technology and is the CTO and the brains behind the website. Marwan Shigini is the CFO and has experience working with MIT as a financial manager. Our team has videographers, graphic designers, marketeers, PR, mostly female, but yes. And we also have a team of advisors, and they really helped us through the challenges we faced and taking us and helping us think outside the box. So we really appreciate their advisory. Now the $1 million question, and hopefully the $1 million funding. We thought, we're bootstrapped. How can we get over this? Do we do crowdfunding? Do we ask family and friends? Do we go to angel investors? Do we target loans? What do we do exactly? What is free? And we realized competitions have amazing grants and with no strings attached. We participated in several ones, and luckily we won the 2nd place in MIT Enterprise Forum in Saudi Arabia in the startup track, and we got a grant of $14,000. And we also, as Gonzalo mentioned, won 1st place in What Is Out There. We also got a grant. Both these grants helped us a lot, not only in funding and in capital. It helped us in recognition and in support. These institutions really helped us connect us to important potential collaborations. We also participated in Harvard Arab Weekend when we were finalists, in MIT Pan Arabia and Cake, and we were a finalist as well, which helped us go to Silicon Valley and meet distinguished entrepreneurs from there, as well as companies, investors, and mentors. It has been such a significant exposure for us to see how silicon-based companies think. And right now, we're incubated in Badir, which is under the King Abdulaziz City of Science and Technology. And it's an incubator that supports tech startups logistically and mentorship and all of that, and even in office space. Lessons learned. Now I'm going to talk about this from a macroeconomic perspective. Really, there's a high rise in startups. As the previous panel mentioned, according to the GEM report, Saudi ranks amongst the top 5 in having entrepreneurs. But look at it from 20 years down the line, you would see that it would be the 60th. Why? Because of the lack of support. From our experience, cross-border talent is not encouraged. Now, one of my co-founders is American, and it's so hard for us to include him here. And this is a problem as well for a lot of companies that want to hire from abroad, especially when it comes to partnership. So this is one of the challenges. The regulatory gap and unclear policies. Every day we have a new policy, right? Specifically to us, we can get a policy in shipment that says, okay, don't ship this category. So what do? How do you encourage those local entrepreneurs to sell these things if you're not allowing them to ship them? So there's a lot of unclear whys as to why is this happening, and also bankruptcy laws, right? If you go bankrupt, you know what happens. As well as availability of funds, there is funds. But personally, we don't want to go through a person rather than an institution. There's a lack of institutions. It's better for the person, the investor, and the entrepreneur to go through an institution because of the risk factor, because of preserving everything, the money in return. And mentorship and advisory is quite new. It's still, if you want to go to universities, to the institutions that are here today, they provide that, but not business owners. I would love to sit with a business owner who had an online marketplace. That would be great, but usually they ask for money. So the concept of mentorship and giving time to entrepreneurs is still new. And that's it, really. Please do visit artistia.com, buy locally, think locally, and help us be the next Saudi tech company that goes global. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lulu, and thank you. She deserves it. Thank you for sharing your experience and the lessons learned, and especially showing and highlighting the role of an institution like IDB or the Saudi Spanish Center in encouraging entrepreneurs. And now, our brother Tawfiq Hidayat from Indonesia, he is the winner of the last year, and he is the CFO of the Genting Traditional Healthy Market in Indonesia. He's working towards local empowerment and eradicating poverty, and he's the second place for the best national social enterprise in 2012, organized by Indonesia Mandiri Bank. And he was selected in 2015 as Indonesia representative for entrepreneurship workshop on Catalyst program in Seattle, USA. Please, brother.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Taufiq Hidayat. I come from Indonesia. Sorry. I live in one small city in Garut City in West Java province. In Indonesia, it takes 6-hour drive from Jakarta to go to my cities. So Garut City is very beautiful city with beautiful culture. We have a lot of natural spots to explore by national and international tourism. Main potentials of my city is coming from agriculture. Based on the statistical bureau, 95% of our area used for agriculture, and it can contribute to more than 40% of Garut regional domestic income. So agriculture potential is quite big for our cities. However, this huge agricultural potential is quite contrast if we compare with the poverty conditions of these cities. 6 from 10 people in my cities just only graduated from junior high school. On the other hand, there are more than 30 educated people unemployed every day, and there are more than 300,000 people live below poverty line with under $2 daily income. And this poverty condition also happened in my village, the place that I was born, the place that I was living on in Genteng village, a border village in Garut City. Main occupations people there just only work as farmer or laborer with very low daily income. To go to my village, we have to drive for 1 hour from the downtown of Garut City and cross the very bad public facilities. These bad public facilities force most of local farmers there hampered or get problem to transport the agricultural product to the government market in the cities. They have to pay very expensive transportation costs to transport the agriculture product. And the other hand, it also hamper local villager there. If they want to buy a medium or big scale of product, they have to go to the cities to buy their needs. And these conditions not only happen in my village, but also in other 14 villages surrounded of my villages. Consequently, most of local farmers there just can sell their farming product to middlemen who exist in our village, buy the product with very low in price, and monopolize the agricultural product with very, very low price. On the other hand, bad middlemen become the shark lender, the only one capital source for local farmers to get loan or to get capital for running their farming activities. Other option for local farmers to sell their farming product going to the government markets is quite far from our villages. They have to pay extra transportation costs. And the condition of government market is not supported. A lot of bad guy, dirty, smelly, and also high cost of the rent fee. And I and some of local young there want to contribute ourselves, want to solve these issues in our villages, in our communities, by optimizing our agricultural potential that we have through make independent farmers, so the farmers can sell their farming product locally with better price options. Without have to sell their farming product to bad middlemen. Until we come up with an idea to make Genteng traditional market, a local farmers market there, which can provide space for local farmers to sell their farming product locally with better price option. Also make local villager easier to sell their farming, to buy their needs without have to go to the cities anymore. So we connect between the local buyers and local customer in one space in our villages. So both of them didn't go to the cities anymore to buy or sell their needs. We concept our market with 3 main concepts, First is make comfortable and friendly business space. We are private assets, private entrepreneurs. We are non-government support because we don't want to wait government's hands for support our programs. We want to be a partner of governments to accelerate their programs in our communities. And the second one is empowering local poor farmers there. Only poor farmers we empower in our social enterprise. And the other hand, involving local youth in our communities. So local youth can get many job opportunities such as to be parking staff, management staff, and also compost staff, and many more new opportunities we provide for local young there. On the other hand, we provide the cheapest and easiest rent payment system. We rent the booth only less than $100 annual rent fee, the cheapest one in Indonesia. And also we concept our market with woman-friendly market concept, provide CCTV, avoid pickpocket, and also avoiding sexual harassment in our market. And also waste management, and 24/7-hour janitor and security service. The second one is we want to make a strong communities there. So we develop our communities there with several trainings. We consider that our communities is low educated. That's why we held continuous education and sustainable community development. We train the farmers about how to increase their capacity on their farming product, and also management training, financial training, and several trainings to increase their knowledge. We also held weekly Islamic preachings for farmers, and also make farmers market associations to help each other. If one of the farmers gets trouble or gets problem, it will be easier to help amongst the farmers. And the third one is innovative and unconventional self-microfinancing initiative. We increase the saving awareness by held compulsory daily saving program. And through this compulsory daily saving program, we can provide soft loan with coaching system to decrease the shock lender issue and middleman issue in our communities. And also we provide business counseling for accelerating these farmer business activities. Through these activities that we've run for 7 years, it's significantly changed to our progress. Start from 12 booths, now we turn to more than 300 booths and kiosks, empowering more than 180 local farmers there, and also we get several grants from local company and local governments, and also we got several recognition from national and international organizations. The impact that we have created is we increase local farmers' welfare, we create employment in our communities for youth, and also many more new impacts that we have created, better welfare conditions for our communities. On the other hand, it is impact to high participation on education in our villages. Through the impact that we have created, it significantly impact to our recognitions. We got global winner for What is Other competition in 2015, and also as mentioned, I also get second place for Best National Social Enterprise from Mandiri Bank, and also several recognitions, and also news and broadcast from national and international news programs. Our next plan is we want to spread the impact, not only happen in Genteng village, but also in other villages, through make a sustainable local product supplier for our markets. We now have market, we now have demands. Now we need supplier for our product. And we want to spread the impact with making farmers group in each villages, which can supply, routine supply for our farmers market. To establish this program, we need training center, increase the education for the local farmers there, and increase their knowledge about how to increase their productivity now from their villages. And also, we want to increase the entrepreneur, local village entrepreneur in our farmers market to make more booths and more farmers entrepreneur in our social enterprise. So role of youth in my mindset is there's so many countries' problem that needs to solve. On the other hand, there are so many unoptimized potencies or resources that needs youth hand, needs youth idea to make new social enterprise, not only generating income, not only generating new revenue for youth, but also help local governments in our communities address their problems. I'm Taufik Hidayat from Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are really proud of you, Brother Tawfiq and Sister Lulwa. And please, now we conclude this session. We are sorry we are so late. So now we give the floor to our master ceremony, please. And I want to highlight, we want to thank KAUST, our partner for these two events today and tomorrow, and King Abdulaziz University, which is our academic partner. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming for this to this session. We are actually, at the end of our program, and we thank you for coming. And then we will take also into your account your comments. We have another session starting here, maybe at 2 o'clock. That's why we have to, kind of cut it a little bit shorter than what we expected. So we'll use your comments and try to see exactly how we can, take them into account in our future activities. Thank you very much. That's the end of the day. Thank you.